All right.
What's up, FCP fam? Hope you guys are ready for a fun show today. I think we've settled into just doing a lot of breeder roundtable stuff kind of throughout the year. I love those conversations. They're so organic and they always pop off with some really cool just topics and conversations. Like I said, they always feel super organic. I feel like we get a lot of educational material and it opens the door just for people to come on. Like last week, it was just kind of this revolving door of people who had something to say and the conversation kind of flowed. So, um, yeah, it was fun. So I'm super stoked to have gotten on board. We had Lobster in here. It's going to be a fun day. So to kick it off, as we wait for people to trickle in, uh, do a little tour of my garden here. So these are the autos. I don't know if some of you might not follow my Facebook and Instagram page, which is all cool. So I've been rocking some autos, and yeah, they're coming along absolutely amazing. I wish you guys could smell these, but um, yeah, they're absolutely stunning for outdoors, especially here. Um, and just some of the behavior has been kind of wild. Like this one here is really looking like string of pearlsy. It's just real kind of wispy buds, but they're frosted out. Like I could wash the stock on this thing. Um, so yeah, really, really stoked on these girls. But autos, man, they've come a long way, and brother Mendel put in some work on this sour auto line. So shout out to him because dude, he absolutely slayed this. There's so much stank in here. And he did a photo version, not of all of the stuff in his auto line, but dude, these amaretto sour OGs, just let me see if I can get a little smell off of them. It's like sweet. There's some gas, and then it's like hazelnut almond. There's like a little OG in there, like a little OG gas. I don't know how to, but that sour still comes up. So it's got this like tart kind of tinge to it. And these are only, God, they're just about 60 days in. And then I was telling the boys before we went live, my buddy gave me some plants that hermed, or some flower that had seed in it from a plant that hermed. And so I planted a handful of them, and three of them popped up. And I've got this little bush here. And my goal is to try and get this to herm. So I've got a back porch light that I turn on when I let the dogs out. If it's nighttime, I'll come out here and smoke. And my goal is to just see like how resilient a herm is when you put it, like herm seeds, when you put them outside. Because the general rule of thumb is, you don't necessarily breed with herms. You don't necessarily want to put them in your garden because the risk. And I'm just curious, does Mother Nature kind of suppress a little bit of that herm trait uh, just through being outside and kind of adapting to the stress slowly instead of like having this super sensitive kind of vibe? So I'm curious if, I want to kind of talk about that a little bit today and see if anybody's got some insight, because especially outdoors, like you get once a year and if you're under a plant count, you're really not trying to risk shit. This year, I'm just kind of like, whatever, let's try it. And then we'll come into the greenhouse real quick. I've learned that autos in my greenhouse, while they do well, they just take longer. Like these were all planted the same time as the ones outside. And this is some of the just straight sour diesel auto. Again, I'm really curious what this would have ended up if I had put it out front, but smells like sour. Like it's wild how sour it, like, I don't know. Sour D in an auto is kind of trippy to me, but it just smells like sour D, which is awesome. I'm just loving that. Here's another pheno of it. This is So these are the amaretto sours that I planted in here. You can tell how far behind they are. They look like they're barely getting going, and they're just as old as the ones outside. So this is like what happens to your autos if you don't have adequate light. They get real sparse. It takes them a lot longer to fill in. I'm really curious, like if they end up looking like the autos outside, but just taking longer. But I don't think they're going to swell up like that. So yeah, this is kind of the greenhouse auto. So I probably won't be doing that again. These are some of the sour blueberry a la mode or blueberry sour a la mode, something like that. These didn't get as tall. They are filling out a little bit better. And they smell like, to me, it's like blueberry. It'd be like blueberry limeade without the lime, but the tartness. It's kind of wild. And then these are all, everything in the big pots. Those are all my photos of the Afghan times sour punch. I took the Afghans times Hindu and gave them to my buddy because I had a male and a female, and I gave him an Afghan sour punch. So we're going to let the Afghan times Hindu pollinate on the Afghan sour punch and the other Afghan Hindu. This is another Afghan sour punch. The whole line that I have in here is Afghan sour punch. And I don't know if you remember at the beginning of the year, they were absolutely scorched from the heat. And I basically just had to flood them with water to keep that from happening. And now we've got plants that are just starting to go into flower in here. And I'm really stoked on the size because they stretch out and I don't have to do any like lower pruning on any of the branches. Like they stretch and then all the flower development just happens at the top. So I really don't have to do any like lollipopping. I mean, I suppose I could further down here. But yeah, I really don't have to do much with that. I think I've got fucking mealy bugs on this bitch. Not anymore. But yeah, I'm really stoked on how my garden's going this year. I can't wait to harvest those autos. The smell that comes off of these sour Afghans is really kind of wild. It's like a kind of citrusy, but there's a lot of pine in there. And I know they just started flowering, so it's kind of hard to really get anything. But it's wild how much they stink just like rubbing on a fan leaf. You really get this like kind of wild, citrusy, funky pine. We got 35-gallon pots all the way down the line and then a 45-gallon because that's just what I had. All the autos are in 10s and I've got 2 planted per 10-gallon pot. And then just metal garden beds for the autos and no feeding, just healthy soil, good, healthy, amended soil. This bed is kind of tripping me out though, because I really didn't do anything in it last year except for have some wildflowers, and I just mulch in the wildflowers once they die off. So between the roots and like all the wildflower stalks and like the petals and the seeds, I'm really actually surprised how well these autos out here did, because they tend to feed a little heavier during like their stretch phase. When I have them in smaller pots, they tend to deplete the soil a little bit quicker. But yeah, they've been doing really good in this bed. So I'm kind of on this wildflower kick now. You know how that gets. Anyway, that's my garden tour. What you trimming up on, Rotten?
Mic check, mic check, mic check.
It was a little hit and miss, but we kind of heard you. All right. I think We got to do a mic reset for the boys. And looks like it's just us. What's up, Russ?
Hey, bro. Hey, I just came in to say hi. I was just gonna see what was going on. Oh, we got some homies. Yeah, I just wanted to come and pop in and say what's going on. And hey, Peter.
Good morning.
Yeah, I got dude, I'm so fucking backlogged right now. I gotta go to the dump. I gotta sort seeds. I gotta fucking plant plants. I gotta take clones. It's all in a few days, and so it's just like it's like I'm almost like a deer in the headlights, where it's like where do I start? It's like
The life of a one-man shop.
it's
Yes.
so bizarre because it's like it's like analysis paralysis, where I'm like,
Yep.
well, if I do this now, then this is gonna come up. I'm like, well, not gonna, and it's like, like, just fucking go and start something.
Yep.
Yesterday I drove during rush hour down San Vicente all the way to the lumber yard, and they had just closed. So getting all the 2x6s that I wanted to build a garden bed, and then you're like, fuck, what could I have done in that time slot?
Yeah, that's real. That is totally real. I gotta go carry around. Where is that fucking thing? I have this little hemp notebook that I carry around sometimes, and then I lose half the time, and I just have to like write shit down. If I don't write it down, I'm fucked. Like writing it down actually makes it.
I do that shit all the time. I have notes in my phone. I'll do like Thursday, this, Friday, this,
Yeah.
Saturday, this, and then I'll organize my notes in priority, like what I need to do first. Like this is the most important thing. None of the other shit gets done until this is done, and then I do that down the list.
Yeah.
I got little whiteboards that stick to the fridge, and I start writing the shit.
There you go. Yeah, that's it. It's writing it down is the only way, bro.
Sticky notes.
Yes. PBS.
So actually, when Russ, I'll send you some of these pollen bags because they want to start selling them again in the U.S. Oh, look, there's Trevor.
Hey, Peter.
Trevor, did I ever send you pollen bags?
No.
Okay, I'll send you some pollen bags. But yeah, because they have. Anyway, I don't even know where to start. They had two sizes, and then I want to get feedback on like other sizes.
Okay, are they like branches? What are they for?
Depending on the size, you could either cover a branch, you could cover a whole plant, you could cover like they even have like tent size
pollen. That's crazy.
I like the tent sized because then you can just do, you can do pollen containment at scale sort of thing.
Yeah, that's where I would be at, the tent size stuff. But
yeah.
It depends. So you like put it over a male like branch? Like what are you just like putting it over a female flower branch? And
you could do any.
So
yeah,
both
like
of those. I've seen how they work, and so either you collect pollen into like a bag that's a tube, and you do like individual branch.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
Or I didn't know they had like garbage bag size where you could like
just cover.
Yeah, cover a plant. But the tent, I hit up Dan and made a post months ago asking what he was using in one of his posts, and he hit me up and got back to
Dan
me. Dan
Pomerantz, or which
what it was, but he's using Agribon for
which Dan?
Yeah, exactly, Trevor. Yeah, that's with the scale of what I'm at. That's like where we're at. Yeah.
Yeah. So the tent size would be legit. I'd be stoked on that.
Yeah, it's cool also seeing
like a off-brand use. Like the manufacturer is like swore to Dan that it was woven tight enough that no pollen would make it through.
It is. There's different types too. Like you have to. There's like for the advanced stuff, you have to be very like knowledgeable about which weave, and a lot of the weaves are like you can't get smaller swaths of fabric. The right weave is like larger, like rolls that cost more. That like for a small breeder isn't always effective, or
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
like the shit you buy if you just go to fucking the hardware store and buy Agribon. It's gonna leak. Yeah.
No, and like he said the freeze blanket is the one, or the frost blanket, whatever they call it. That's like a off the shelf thing.
Yeah.
And I've been using it, and I haven't noticed any escapes yet. But fingers crossed, we'll see.
Sweet. Awesome.
It is cool watching them, like obviously other plants, so like palm and like hops you can do. I've seen them like cover like the long, super long stalks.
Still waiting for that hops cannabis cross.
I mean, that's going to be a trip because it's like moving backwards in evolution.
Fuck,
like the plants, they split, and now you're going to be like, no, get back. You two back together.
Back together. That's funny. That's funny. Oh, man. Well, what's going on? Are you guys still talking about Strandivars?
We're talking
where we're
about...
at?
Well, we can talk about anything. I thought if Trevor can pull up everything he remembers about Nikolai Vavilov.
Ooh, I'm gonna write that name down.
Shit.
That could be a starting point, and then we can go in all sorts of.
Yeah, we're just jumping down rabbit holes today. Whatever pops up,
And I'm gonna preface this by saying I can't. I'm gonna have to bounce here shortly. I just want to come in and say hi to you guys. Saw Peter sent the link, so I gotta deal with the kids. Got school starting and soccer. It's like not only all that shit, the school and kids. Like
I just dropped my oldest daughter at her mom's house because they're going to. Her mom was Vipra, the evil villainess in Power Rangers.
Oh my!
And Power Morphicon is like Comic-Con, a little, obviously smaller, but solely dedicated to Power Rangers.
Oh, huh.
And it's at the Pasadena convention. So anyone in Pasadena.
Fucking Pasadena. That's a little bit of
But my daughter, I was like, at what point do you think you and mommy don't need to keep going to Power Morphicon? Because she's like, I don't want to go. And I'm like, your mom's making you go with you. But next year you can speak up on you can say you don't want to go.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I wanted to say, I forgot yesterday because it was such a deep conversation regarding nomenclature. The one thing I remember from Ryan when Ryan was ranting on that episode all those years back was variety versus varietals. And I just want to say for everyone in the chat, varietals is the wrong nomenclature. A varietal is for wine and just wine only. So variety is the proper nomenclature if you're talking about other plants like cannabis. For its specific, designation.
I'll geek out if we go down nomenclature rabbit hole.
I'm all about it, bro.
It's a party.
Oh, nice, Kevin. I got juiced yesterday thinking about this. Like, I thought the whole strain thing was just a joke, and at this point, I'm like, wait, people are actually trying to like move this over. I'm like, it's not. It just doesn't make sense. Like I was like reeling from this. Like what? Like
dude, and we get caught up because not everybody really knows. So when you're like, no, it's not a strain, they're like, they short out. You're like, no.
Just quickly, Kevin, we were talking nomenclature yesterday, and that
Kev, what does Kev know about it? About this?
Kev knows that it's a contentious subject.
100%.
What I know is that we can say that traditionally, it's not the right phrase. It's not the right term. But when you use something long enough, it becomes what people understand. And when you challenge them in that belief, they have a fucking emotional breakdown. And what I learned in cannabis is that so many of us in cannabis are unbalanced. That's why we're in cannabis. Because I mean, someone asked me, they said, what makes you think you're unbalanced? I said, I was a fucking 13, 14-year-old felon. I said, are any of your kids felons at 14? Did you catch another set of them when you were 16? So it lets me know there must have been something wrong. And it just created a place for me that I could live and exist. So we created our own world in a vacuum, and we created it in a vacuum because we could never go outside the vacuum for fear of getting caught, repercussion. And so we all study and learn, but we don't put anything in context. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to what it is. And so I always use the word cultivar for clonal selections designed for commercial production, which is the definition, but primarily because that's what I was doing is I was hunting plants for commercial production, selected clones that had R&D with them. And it just was it was the appropriate word for it, but I don't correct people on the terminology. It you call it whatever the fuck you want. As long as I know what we're talking about, then we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just like the same thing with craft, right? I did this huge research on craft because it's the single most overused word in alcohol, and it's probably the most overused word in cannabis. And really, the definition of craft is fucking hand. Craft means hand. Its original word was hand, because before the industrial age, of course, it was fucking made by hand. You didn't have any machines to make it, so you wouldn't have said handmade. So the Neolithic answer is a handmade arrow. They'd be like, "What else are you gonna make with your fucking foot?" So when someone says to me, it's handcrafted, I said I was laying this out for a friend. I said that actually says handcrafted means hand by hand. So it doesn't make any sense, right? But we've taken it and we've adopted it. Craft becomes a size of a drink. The alcohol bottle you hold is a craft because it's the amount of alcohol an average hand could hold when they measured it. So like when you understand the etymology of words and you really go backwards to understand it, and you see the evolution of a word over time and how it's been adapted and how people believe it to be, it just comes down to semantics. And I'm just too fucking old to argue anymore about this shit. I'm cool with it. Like you want to call it a strand, a cultivar, whatever you want to call it, that's fine. And
yeah, well
you get what they're saying.
I completely agree with you 100%. The thing that maybe Trevor can tell you, something different is happening where there's certain groups of people in some positions of authority or power trying to literally classify the nomenclature federally as a strain, like they're trying to do that.
Oh, like totally. No, I've been following Trev stuff online.
Oh, you have been following.
He puts up unbelievable information.
Yeah.
And
is there any ramification associated with like changing that nomenclature, like going away from the traditional botanical taxonomic definitions and like having cannabis in its own category though? Like,
well, it's wild because it seems like they're using slang to legally define cannabis.
To a degree, but I mean, strain is a family of bacteria, so it isn't like it's not within agricultural, plant-based, living organism-based definitions.
Right.
And I think that what has, if they classify it and we can re-agree, and then we can say, okay, what does it mean? How do we use it? I don't care what the fuck the name was. I just care about, do we all have an ability to use the word and understand what it means? What we have in herb is babble, where we're all communicating with different shit and then fighting over the definition or the meaning, and therefore there's no communication. And then it just doesn't allow us to be able to move information correctly. And I think that that's the issue. And what we need is just standardization. If they wanted to throw every word away and come up with a whole new vocabulary set for us to be in the federal legalization system, and then we all said, okay, that's the new word. That's what it is. That's what we're going to use. That's what it implies. And then it's standardized. Then I don't have an issue with it, just because it'll allow everyone who communicates in our field, our space, to be able to mean the same thing. I want to say something here in the United States and have someone in Africa say, "Oh, I understand what you mean."
Yeah.
And I want to be able to
It's-
understand what they say.
It's funny you bring that up because there's so much that exists. When we were talking about last
Yeah,
week, we were
no, I
talking
agree,
about
Kev,
blueberry
and I
with
think that
Eloise.
that's like in lay sort of like everyday terminology strains perfectly fine. There's no reason people should police other people's speech or say that, you know, everyone has to use the term cultivar strictly for, you know, cannabis plants. But I think that there is a big part of it about, as federal legalization happens, there are in hemp, you know, specific varieties that are permissible to be cultivated in certain jurisdictions because they're recognized cultivars of hemp cannabis. And it's up in Canada, they've got different varieties that they allow to be cultivated. Different states in the US did and have. And that's something where the integration of everything that we've done for the last 50 years of naming, and a lot of it is babble and a lot of it is nonsense, but creating order and stability out of all of that babble and nonsense and getting to a consensus on the things that we do all agree about. Sour diesel is sour diesel, chem dog is chem dog, 91 and D, etc. And for all of these things that we've named and we've passed around and we've built our culture around, they should get recognized and they should be admitted into a recognized cultivar list whenever a cultivar checklist does get created, because these things are cultivars. They've got names, they've got descriptions, those names and descriptions have been published. And there's no getting around Article 27 of the ICNCP. That's
where but the cultivar is where it gets really messy. You know, you've got this long history of naming convention that came out of, you know, well, first the botanical, you know, Linnaeus and Lamarck, right? You have the systematics that were developed for binomial nomenclature, and then rules that were established that excluded this plant post 1937, and pre 1937. You know, minimal work was done, and then when you get to the rules that were established for cultivars, yeah, the problem is you kind of have two separate parallel tracks where cannabis was being developed and all this naming system was being developed in an underworld system, while the rest of the horticultural and taxonomic system just kept moving along and the rules kept changing, and cannabis kind of diverged into something completely different. And I don't know that it's, you know, possible to pull cannabis back into the, you know, quote unquote cultivar system, because the rules that are established make that very difficult. You know, I know the rules exist and I'm very familiar with the rules themselves, and having cannabis line up with all the rules is going to be important as federal and legalization happens. And especially for breeders who want to protect their intellectual property, but it's going to be challenging. It's going to take a lot of work by not just all of the breeders, but the scientific community as a whole to try to make this possible. You know, I think that I've heard a lot of really interesting ideas on yesterday's show plus today's, about how to make that happen. But you know, like terms like strain and cultivar, variety, varietals, you know, there's so many terms being used to describe the same thing. It's like, how do we get everybody on the same page? That's really what it boils down to. It's how do we get
Well,
everybody
There's
it's tough
agree
though.
on
Like
one?
varietal means a blend of grape in a bottle, right? So
Right.
it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the fucking plant, right? Varietal
Yeah.
implies multiple grapes put together to form something, right? So some of the definitions are used, but the issue that I see so much is everybody wants to be goddamn right. And so it's this constant never ending. Who's the smartest in the fucking room? Which scientist is going to lead the way? Which grower is going to lead the way? And so we can never have conversations without like full emotional blowouts. And it just makes it tough because you could siphon this back into normal agricultural methodologies, right? It's just, it's possible. It's just to say, look, we have a list of plants that have been in existence for a long time. We have genotype on them. We have entire lines that literally emerge from them from selfing that creates families and in a non-conventional manner, but it doesn't delegitimize the reality of that plant. So
Well, and
like,
that's where I
Trev's
say,
point,
Kev,
sour diesel, and then you're just gonna remove it for convenience. Then who's making the decisions? And my thing is that if you just watch the DEA hearings, like it's fascinating to see them prove it out. But who the fuck was included in the hearing? Like
right.
none of us are included, right?
No.
We're
Nobody-
not part of these
And that's what I
conversations
was
at
going to
all.
say. There's two avenues of speech.
Yeah.
When we
No,
talk
and I
about
want to
this
jump in
plant.
real
There's
quick
the,
and
there's the normal, like
one,
everyday
agree with
person,
you that like, yeah, it's a massive
and then
clusterfuck in
there's the
cannabis
legal.
and naming conventions, and it doesn't conform to the rules.
It must not hear.
That said, it also the rules exist. Like De Condole wrote the Luis whatever rules of nomenclature back in the 1870s, specifically because of the proliferation of Latin names and fancy just vernacular names in plants and massive confusion that was going on. And he was like, okay, we've got, botanical nomenclature, we've got these binomial names. Let's actually create rules for botanical plants and then rules for horticultural plants. And then that eventually became the botanical code of nomenclature. And then eventually that spun off into the cultivated code of nomenclature in the 1950s. And in the introduction, W.T. Stern writes out basically the history of how we got to where we got to with the creation of the cultivated code. And he's like, in like the 1600s with the tulip explosion, there was a massive proliferation of tulips and all these different names and confusion, and nobody knew what the fuck it was, and they were worth tons of fucking money, and there was this huge bubble. And so there was a need to create rules and order in this chaos. And then he gives his example of some other things. Orchids is another one where the chaos has always preceded the rules and the order in nomenclature. And we're in that place of the chaos.
Mhm.
All we have to do is start using the rules that already exist and have been agreed to by everybody else and apply to all plants. All of them. It says in the preamble, this applies to all plants that are maintained and selected in cultivation.
Totally. And I would gladly change and adopt the terminology so that we all were on a common base. I don't have.
Well, indica
I'm not-
sativa is one we still argue over today.
Oh, Jesus Christ. And it's because people can't catch that you're describing morphology. And then when you really take a look at it, it was all this, this discovery of things. And we look at it and go, wait a second. Nobody, because of the way cannabis was looked at originally, then brought in, it's all fucked up. But we can't admit it and just say, hey, wait a second, can we rework this? And it just comes down to your bias. And it was funny, Caleb. I saw you, I didn't recognize you, right? And I said, man, that dude's got some wild ass hair. I said, what the fuck is that on his head? And then I realized it was you, man. Good to see you, bro.
I just cut it.
It's good. But I get asked the same thing. And I said, look, I don't believe that I'm an authority on this topic to the degree that everyone has to listen to what I have to say. And that's really some of the problems, is that we have a hard time stepping down off the platform and just saying, hey, where's the middle? And how do we reach it in a way that allows there to be a betterment of our craft, of our industry, of understanding the plant, versus an internal betterment, which is most motherfuckers want. Most people have not enough accomplishment, so they need to attach themselves to shit so emotionally they can't let goddamn go. If you've been working in it long enough, you don't give a fuck what it is, because you know that you're not gonna get removed or replaced from your position of what you've done in your life. But herb is, man, I deal with people every day that have emotional breakdowns in herb. It's like it blows my fucking mind. I'm like, whoa.
Dude, it's so much on the internet, because I run into people every day, like in person, and they'll, it opens more dialogue. So we'll be sitting down over a joint and we'll be talking about the plant, and I'll start going, well, what do you mean? What are you trying to, explain to me, or what are you trying to communicate to me? And we'll have a conversation around just, oh, this is where the disconnect happened. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, oh, okay, so what's the best way to refer to this so we both just know what we're talking about? And
totally. You have to be able to define the terms,
yeah,
so that you're able to have real communication. And we end up fighting over it. But I'm like, because it's funny, because I follow all the Trev stuff, because he's to me, a fantastic researcher, right? So like, you dig up some beautiful shit and then you put it out in an assimilable form, and you say, here's my supporting argument, here's my view on how I see it. And so I see all this work coming out. And so the conversations at present, it's just, do we choose or choose not to follow the route of convention? And the science teams, they're so determined to have control, because getting cited is your fucking rank in the science. And I'm not anti-science, but getting cited is your power. How many white papers did you release? How many times are you cited? If you're in a university, you need to be in this many articles to have any value, to bring money into the university. So I'm not anti-science, but the way they rank value is in that form. And so they fight heavily for the control. For us, we're having to like release our decades and decades of attachment to a topic or a subject, and that's hard to release. But like, at some point, man, you got to grow the fuck up and walk in the room and say, okay, we're not 5 years old. We can say what works. Like, I'm serious. I laugh. I'm like, it was the only example I can have is that when we, and it's not a plug for the Ganjier, but it was that when we put the first Ganjier, the project together, there was 18 of us in the room, right? It was an all-out screaming war at each other over who was right. And
I can with the personalities I know in that room, I can imagine that.
Holy Christ, right? And so what occurred though was we were all old enough to laugh about the fact that we were all acting like we were 5. And what we did is we started to sit down and just say, this is how I believe it from this. And it allowed there to be what Jeff was saying, an equivalency. This is what I mean. This is what I'm trying to say. How do we find agreement, or should we just discount it completely? Is this something that has value that should be measured, or is it just something that should be noted? And by the time it was done, I mean, I sometimes I sit in the house and I can still hear Frenchie, no, no, because his accent was just so absolute Parisian.
Well, he's the one who got me fixated on nomenclature. Like, there was just a few things where I was like, oh, son of a bitch, I never thought about that.
No, Frenchie was without question an absolute professional in his craft.
Yeah.
And what he wanted to see legitimacy. But in the same token, Frenchie had to also back up from his position when he wasn't correct. Right. And so that's what we all found, was that we all had beliefs that were right, and we all had beliefs that were wrong, and in degrees of right and wrong. And it was just a matter of putting the ego down and just saying, hey, what's best for the plant we're working with, and what's best for the people? It's kind of like you hear it all the time, I'm about the plant. I always hear that shit. I'm like, in what fucking way? Like, you're about the plant in what way? What is it that you're so about?
Right.
And it's and people take it as a challenge that I'm like attacking the relationship. I'm not. It's just that it's a buzzword. I'm about the community. And I'm like, which one? There's like 700 communities in weed. Which
Right.
community are you
Well,
about?
well, and with that, you also have to accept that there's some things that will just never like translate. So I remember a conversation I was having with Eloise a few years ago, and we were discussing like flavor, and we were trying to explain like what we were experiencing in the herb, and it actually came up during the blueberry conversation. He had no idea when we were saying this tastes like blueberry. She had no clue. She had absolutely no clue what we were referring to when we said blueberry, because what she was experiencing where she was at was a very different profile than the sweet, candy, juicy blueberries that we experience over here. So there's some things that you cannot explain until you present something and they can get their hands on it. And I think with nomenclature, it kind of works the same way. Like there's times where it's like, I have no idea what you're taught, what you're even saying. The word could be simple, but if they don't even understand, like, so there's things that even beyond just communication, you have to provide an example, physical, something you can taste, see, touch. It's kind of wild, but yeah, when me and Eloise were talking about that, I never even had thought about it. I'd never thought about like somebody in another country having no clue what we mean when we say artificial.
A certain
Yeah, like skunk. Skunk is a good one because there's no skunks in Europe,
Yeah,
and they don't know what a skunk is.
yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's a very subjective thing. That human experience is fascinating. How subjective it is. That leads down many different tangential rabbit holes. I got a jet. It was really nice
later.
to see you guys. But just
Here's
one
Big
thing.
Russ.
My final thought would be 100% when it's cultural. This is my final opinion, right? At this moment in time, when it's cultural, I don't give a fuck what you call it. I don't care.
Yeah, if you're hanging around with your high school friends on a couch, you're not gonna
or arguing
word
online,
police
whatever.
them.
Strain, cultivar, phenotype, whatever. We all know what you mean. We all know. But I would just caution on a federal level if things start like diverging from the botanical taxonomic structure, there could be some weird language issues with interpretation and things that like go haywire down the road, possibly. That's all.
Yeah,
I
I
would
could
say.
see that. I could see that legally challenging it. Like,
All right.
no, this is not a
Yeah,
strain.
I don't
This is
know.
a-
I don't know.
yeah.
I could just be projecting, but all right, you guys.
No,
have
no, it's accurate, Russ.
Hey,
And you're
much
always
love,
throwing
Russ.
some good info. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, Russ.
No,
No,
it's just the
there's-
issue with the federal shit is that it just blows my mind. But it's the same with every state. Nobody gives a fuck about the people who built the industry. It's about who is going to be in control, because power is ultimately what most people seem to desire. And the irony is, herb is a drug that kind of makes you not want to have power. Herb brings about a really beautiful community sense. It's rare that you go smoke a joint and want to go up to someone's house and smock them in the fucking mouth, right? Like it's herb is a beautiful substance, and it's one of the reasons why I believe it was so heavily prosecuted. And not just it's the industrial hemp issue, but it's also the recognition that herb brings dissimilar people together to find common value, and divisiveness is like critical in order to control. And so who's gonna write the naming convention? Like Caleb's a good person to ask, is because he's in the I would say the scientific community, and also in understanding the bigger picture of the implications. But for me, I just know that our DA is not going to call me on the phone and say, come on in and have a conversation with us. And if they do, you damn well know I don't want to get in that room. I'm afraid I'm going to leave in handcuffs. So
and that's where I think a lot of people get hung up on, like, no, let's stick to what's scientifically botanical. Let's stick to what's already established as botanical language.
In the scientific world, yes.
Yeah.
And we almost look like idiots to the rest of the world if we're like the one plant where we're like, and we in the scientific world are calling it a strain.
I'll tell you what though, Peter, my brother-in-law is a well recognized scientist in the hematology world. And if I'm hanging out with him, I can't open my mouth without sounding like an idiot. Like there's not a word I can say when I'm hanging out and like we're just chit chatting and if it turns even slightly like science, there's not a damn word I can say that sounds like I know what I'm talking about. Unless we're discussing cannabis and I know the scientific, botanical, scientific language.
Yeah.
Like that's about the only time.
Then you can hold your own.
Meh. Because he knows some about that stuff too. He's a fucking genius. And so when you're around that group of people, if you don't know the nomenclature, if you don't know the terminology, you're gonna slip off. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that until you get into a courtroom. You know, so that's kind of like I think that the census is when we start getting into the definition of a legal term, and we're using that to define the legality of something. It gets tricky. I think it gets really tricky.
Just quickly,
science is like learning it's like learning a foreign language, essentially. One of my early college professors, that's how he described science. It's like you're learning a foreign language, you know.
Josh, can you move the speaker closer or the microphone closer to your mouth? We're getting like a
Like a feedback.
No, not a feedback, but it's the audio quality could be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
So Peter, I don't know if anybody's gone to like college for any of this, but don't you have to take Latin to be a lawyer or a doctor?
Wait, what was the question? Don't you have to do what? Take a
I
test?
feel like you have to like learn Latin. Like, don't you, in order to be a lawyer or a doctor, don't you have to like learn Latin?
You're
like
certainly learning a lot of words, right?
Right. And a lot of those, I have no idea. I just, for some reason, I'm like, there's a lot of shit in the courtroom that they say that's Latin. Like they're referring to certain things in Latin.
And they all have the same understanding of the meaning of that word or that phrase.
Yeah.
Right.
So it goes all the way back to the origination of that word. They're like, this is blah, blah, blah. And that's a term that's used in the courtroom to be like, you're fucking crazy, you know? So
and that's where like Latin, Latin is, I don't think you have to take Latin anymore for those degrees, but you used to. And I'll give you a good example.
Josh, before you give us the example, are you outside right now?
No, I'm in my car.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
it's like you're rubbing
the microphone likes it when you rub it. It gets happy.
I was going to say that.
It gets excited.
I tried it. You said it was what works on. Is that a little better, or is that still messed up?
That's better. That's better.
And I'm just fucking
much improvement.
I just couldn't leave it. I just had to say something.
Yeah, but like with Latin and taxonomy, what most like classification, like especially when you get down to like genus and species. So genus is kind of fixed, right? Like family is kind of fixed. Species, though, there's a lot of discretion that can be used when applying a botanical term or descriptive term at the species level. And so a lot of scientists, let's say you discover or create a new plant, or you discover a new species of fish or whatever, sometimes a nom de plume will be used to describe.
Yeah, don't you have people who name things after themselves, right? So that's like a vanity naming.
Yeah, but then like some things though are very descriptive. Poison ivy, for instance, is Toxicodendron radicans. And so if you break that down and you look at the Latin, and Greek base of that word, toxico is toxic, right? That's pretty straightforward. Toxicodendron. So if we look at dendron, that means tree or shrub in Latin. And then you have radicans, which means to creep. So essentially, Toxicodendron radicans breaks down to a toxic tree that creeps, right? And so if you look at poison ivy, poison oak, all the different varieties of that, you'll see that the scientific name is very descriptive of the plant itself.
Right.
And so there's a lot of the historical uses of Latin for taxonomy that doesn't exist anymore, that you'll see a lot of the very early plants descriptions and the systematics they've changed over the years. In the early days, they did not really ascribe to assigning plant names or species names to individuals. It was more about the actual, they were trying to describe the traits of the plant. And then over time, it turned into, well, let's name this fish after the guy who discovered it, or let's name this mushroom after, my Uncle Bob or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
In this sense, we're not really talking about taxonomy in that sense, right? We're talking about just the cultivar naming, and for the cultivated ones that with the international board. So like if there were cultivated varieties of poison ivy, then there'd be that other third thing at the very end.
There would be something in there. So that takes me to cannabis, because doesn't sativa mean cultivatable, basically farmable?
Right, yeah. And then that's where Linnaeus came up with the term, and why he called it sativa was because cannabis was being cultivated, right? And so he wasn't giving sativa a name, cannabis sativa. He didn't give the species name sativa to describe any like specific trait, but he was saying, hey, this is the cannabis variety or species that is cultivatable. Right, that people are using to cultivate for medicine, for food, for building materials, for clothing, for textiles, like
rope.
All of those uses, for rope, because we got to go back to the, when Linnaeus described these and Lamarck, like cannabis was very different. There was no illegality, and it was a huge part of global trade. So the description sativa was given as a broad term. And I also read some of Linnaeus's notes on when he was describing cannabis sativa. He originally recognized that there were a lot of variety types in there, that there were a lot of different traits that existed, that it would basically, he said, at some point somebody's going to have to do some more work on this, because it's practically impossible to try to capture this complex and very diverse group of plants, all with a descriptive name. And hence the sativa was the easiest way for him to describe it at the time was, hey, this isn't wild feral, just ruderalis, which ruderalis wasn't described until 1924, some near 200 years later, right? And Lamarck with indica, quite a bit later than Linnaeus. So, but anyways, the reason I mentioned that about the taxonomy and the nomenclature, and the reason that names were applied the way they were, was really to point out the problem that we kind of have in cannabis right now, because we need a scientifically defensible cannabis registration system that, one, we can all agree on, two, that lines up with the history of cannabis and what cannabis descriptions, whether it's strain or variety or, cultivar, different terms, like, we're starting to see, the kind of the original descriptions would be like, say you have cultivar, and then in traditional, systematics, you would have like an ascension number where you'd say we use chocolope. You might have, something that says CAN for cannabis, the breeder, DNA, and then an identifying number that's usually somewhere between 6 and 10 digits. You would list the breeder, you would list the breeding population. That population would be the parentals. So OG chocolate tie and, cantaloupe haze. You talk about propagation type. So clonally maintained selection, or if it's there's a germplasm available. One of the big things that we don't have right now in cannabis that we really very much need are reference specimens. We don't have reference specimens. Like we were talking about sour diesel earlier, right? Like everybody's like this, no, this is the real sour diesel. No, this is the real. We need to establish a library of reference tissues, whether they're cryopreserved
Yeah.
or a meristematic repository, where whether it is the scientific community, working alongside the cannabis community and legacy breeders and those that have these cuts, like we need a reference library that can be used for genomic analysis, systematics work to identify unique traits. Chemotype is also another important gene linked system that can be used to help classify some of this. So it's going to be a really challenging thing. And like, so many of you guys and Kevin pointed out, like there's a lot of ego involved around names and types and all this stuff. And it's like, you got to work with, try to be able to work with everybody and get on the same page. And it's going to be a challenge, but I do think it's possible. Can
I jump in for 1 sec?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's the issue of I just wrote a post for someone's, like a blog post for him, and it was basically is herb today better than it was in the past, or is the past herb better than it was today? And it for me it wasn't this comparison contrast. It was purely what you had 30 years ago. I don't care how the fuck you held it. It is not the same as it is today. Just like we aren't. We are dynamic. We're a living entity. We constantly change and evolve and develop. And every method of propagation has an impact. Every holding methodology has an impact. And even cryo does, right? Because I get to work with some guys that were doing cryo in cannabis. They pioneered it out. I got to work with the team and got the data. We were able to transfer it to another lab. They were able to do the sequential plunge. But now we have to test that material over time. And with all plants, the range of measurement that we look at is relatively small. But with cannabis, the list of qualities that we look at is fucking massive, and it's exponential. So how the fuck do you quantify exponential, right? And so I had this belief in because I've been playing with TC operations since probably 2010. I had a friend that had his own lab. And so I used to provide him material so that he could find out what struck in his agar, because he was pioneering the shit. And so what I got to see from that was this belief that we're going to reset this plant to zero. And no, you reset it to the day before you put it into the damn culture, and you scrub off pathogens that have accumulated, but you're not taking it back to zero, because at the end of the day, the way you propagate it doesn't change cellular development and acclimatization in the environment over decades. So like our problem with herb is that there's too many details to measure. Like herb is the plant that's the hardest plant to measure, because you have so many different factors simultaneously occurring that it makes it, and I fully agree, you need to have reference banks, you need to have gene banks. You need to have people working together to say, look, this is what this reflects, but it reflects it from an indoor held environment. This reflects it from sun-grown environment, because they're going to be 2 different fucking changes over the course of 20 years. And that's what makes it so difficult, is that there is no one way to do it. And we get so obsessed with preserving what was that we're not clear about it's not ever going to be what it was. Because everyone's got the right sour, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Open that bag and blow a room out. That was the sour we were introduced to. Who's got that cut right now? I don't see anybody with that cut. So therefore, what are we capturing? The best of what cut? And so you know what I mean? And like I was getting a lecture from someone the other day about the plants, and I said, homie, every plant we're talking about, I had every one of them when they came out, and I still have most of them banked up. But I'm telling you, I can say that it's not what it was then. And it's an emotional thing. You have to kind of let go and say, what is the best of today? So when I go into populations, what I look for is what reflects the best characteristics of what's in front of me. And I try to use my memory to say, hey, these are the things I liked, but herb is so plastic and so malleable, and we just don't quite understand the complexity of the organism, that it makes it to where we're always trying to say, hey, this is the definition and it will be this way forever. And when it comes to secondary metabolites, that shit is not true. So it just makes it tough, man. Every time I think I have a method, I find out I'm wrong. Every time I think I'm stable, I'm wrong. And so what I learned after 48 years of doing this is that I don't know a lot. You know, I really don't. And that allows me to still enjoy what I do every day as a learning experience, because I realize that the organism we're working with is so unbelievably complicated, complex, that trying to hold anything fixed is almost impossible. And that just makes it difficult. What's up, Eloise? How you doing, sis? Good to see you. Good.
We're almost at the Brady Bunch layout. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we need one more person, and we could
Everybody,
do.
I like
Could put Alice in the middle.
Pissed off because Marsha was so popular. Who gets to be Marsha? Because I'm definitely not cute enough.
Nope, she didn't have a beard.
Yeah, good to see you.
That's one of the
Really
problems
interesting
is that
really interesting to hear you talk
want
about
to
that.
hold a thing, but it's the same thing with breeding. When you're working with science teams, it's always yield per hectare. That's how you determine the quality of your corn breeding, right? So the most sophisticated breeding operations on earth are fucking corn and wheat, where you're looking at millions of combinations to come up with the one that gives you more per hectare. That's it. So it's really very, very few details they have to look at, but they do this massive funnel to get to that. Us, on the other hand, have so many different criteria and nuances and details and perceptions that it's just so complicated. So the further you go down the hole, the more you realize that there's no bottom. It's endless. And I think so much of that is that letting go of the, who's got the real sour. It's like, well, they're all real. If you DNA them, they're all fucking S1s of each other. They're bag seed. They're not hybrids. There's no outcrossing. It's all deviation. I think I had almost every OG DNA'd. And me and the scientists fought it out, because I said, no, they're different. And they said, no, they're within a range of deviation that say they're all from the same source. And it took me to understand, whoa, you're right. And it took me to help them understand that the change is so dramatic that you really have a different plant. Larry and Ghost are not the same cut. But without a question.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no. And someone's trying to explain this to me, I said, bro, I had them all. I ran them all out side by side myself at the same time, created the entire population to have DNA'd. And then we argue with the scientists. There's no way these things are not different plants. But the truth is, all descended from a single common cultivar, and how it was held, the influence in the holding, what occurred in its lifespan, the subtleties from S1. And all of a sudden, you're having people screaming at each other over it. And I just quit caring. I just said, you know what? What matters is it good? Does it do what I want it to do? Does it serve the purpose? Is it right for the application? And it let me let go of all this emotional, connection to this past, because I'm like, fuck, we're looking in the rear view mirror trying to drive down the freeway. We're spending so much time looking in the rear view mirror. We're not looking ahead, and we're not working collaboratively to say, hey, how do we work as a community to understand better, hold better, and be able to not fight so much over the semantics, but fight over how do we develop a better industry and a better information access for people who want to come into the industry. Because if you came into the industry, you'd say, holy fuck, you guys are as dysfunctional as it gets. The industry's fucked. How do you attract talent?
It was
Right?
so good when it was all mom and pop. I loved it. Like the early days of California.
They were great because there was a vacuum too. You didn't have enough herb available, right? So the sin of that is it made I hear it from everybody, all my weed's sold. I said, bro, if you fucking don't have any grass in a room, hail sell. But when you have plenty, it doesn't. And so what it did was it made people believe they were better than they really were. And then we get into the commercial era, and it's just basically, you know, more canopy, more numbers, more this, more that. And so it's which one? It's where's the reality? And the reality is in the mind of the beholder. And I just got too old to argue about any of it. And I just said, hey, what matters is we work on creating an open environment that lets people enter the space. We try to be supportive of people so that if they want to pursue a direction, they can. If they want your opinion, you give it to them. If they don't, you don't give it to them. The stuff Eloise does, I love, you know, because she's constantly bringing material out into the world saying, hey, look, these are things that are going to, without question, be removed from existence due to the pressure in these environments that it just is. It's the same thing with like the Ghazni work I released. That whole area got wiped the fuck out. Those plants don't exist anymore in that form because they all got eradicated. So there's new material there, new stuff, but not that stuff. And the point is to be able to get all this germplasm into the system so that you have this diversity, you have the ability to create diversity in a gene pool so you don't have this perpetual bottlenecking. And it's okay to work with bottleneck products, but you put them all into the same damn basket, all of a sudden what? We lose the entire world of cannabis because we're all, you know, it's all OG or it's all sour. And I love those things, but it just comes down to, is that what we want to leave? That's what our fucking legacy? Everyone's always talking about legacy. And I'm like, look, legacy is told after you're gone. It's not what you did. It's what you left. And what are we leaving? And for me, so much of cannabis has been so damn glass ceiling, door closing, infighting that it never allowed us to team up. We learned that in California. If we had only had 300,000, we all had 300,000 in our fucking desks. If we had just spent 300,000 on a lobbyist, we would have been able to change the rules in California fucking dramatically. But none of us could get along as to what we wanted. We didn't catch that we just needed to fight for some parity as a unit, as a group, as really a cluster of individuals. And I think that's, you know, what so much of this is about can people just say, hey, wait a second, what's best for the long term and what's best for the people that follow us? Do we leave a pathway forward that's positive? Do you create an environment that wants to bring people in? If you were a scientist, you wouldn't want to get anywhere near cannabis right now because there's an anti-science aggression that's insane about how they're all stupid. And I'm like, look, they don't know what you know because you spent 40 years in the goddamn game. But what they know how to do is to hold an experiment constant and then repeat it and utilize that information to be able to make change. So
my favorite conversations are when we get people in different silos, like a farmer, someone who's been growing for 20 years, and like a James White, right? Like he's in the lab all day.
Yeah, because there's this conversation about I know what works in my garden. And I got that way for a little bit. I know exactly what works in my garden and how to work it. And I don't care what science said. This is what I do. And if your science says I'm wrong, then fuck you. Like, I know that conversation well because I've seen it from so many people where it's like, no, I'm trying to help you. And it's like, I don't care. I'm getting yields. I'm getting what I want. And it's really hard to wrap your mind around like, oh shit, that's what they like. Like, that's how they want to do it. They don't literally do not care.
No, succeeding by accident is different than succeeding through planned strategy. And we mistake them. And I use the same thing. I said, it's better to be lucky than smart because no one wants to be called fucking smarty pants, but you love to be called lucky. But when luck run out, you better be fucking smart.
That's very American. That's very American. Like you guys, I don't mean this in a bad way, but you have a
but it's true.
An ingrained culture of anti-intellectualism. I mean, a lot of your insults are based around deriding smart people, like, you know, egghead, nerd, stuff like that. Like the there's a great American philosopher who talks about this. You know, like there's this deep-seated culture of like, well, I don't know about all that fancy stuff, but I know what I've got going on. And it works for a lot of things, but when it comes for interfacing with international cannabis community, it fucking sucks. And if you look at it the other way, like for example, like you came to Pakistan, I would be curious to see if the philosophy that people approach cannabis with is partly what inspired you when you went there. Because when I go to India and Pakistan, they talk about cannabis along religious and spiritual lines, and it's very far away from this is my weed, I made it, I know what I'm doing. It's not that at all. It's this is what my ancestors taught me. This is our God's plant, and while
we
you
shared.
see
They all shared. They shared information. They shared genetics. It was absolutely a human collaboration. And I laughed. I said, "Oh my God!" I said, "We perverted the beauty of a plant because of the illegalities and the money." And I'm like, and I love money. Who the fuck doesn't want? You need money. Money's second to air.
Take some comfort in the fact that there's still 1.5 billion people in India plus Pakistan and Bangladesh. So all told, almost 2.5 billion smoke and landrace sharing and thinking about it along communal terms. So it really is sort of like a very regional thing. Like you see this mentality of like my strain, my grow, my knowledge, really sort of in Europe and North America, I would say, Colombia.
Yeah, the colonials.
Yeah,
it's colonialism. Colonialism. It
was that way when I was
destroys any type of community because you have to be in control in order to get paid.
Well, and
yeah,
so
and
we
are anti. We're almost as bad. Like it's almost when I take a look at anti-intellectualism, I take a look at Pol Pot in Cambodia, where if you wore glasses, they cut your fucking head off. If your hands weren't calloused, you weren't like anything that implied that you were not just a simple laborer, you were killed. And we're reaching that level here, but the problem is it permeates into cannabis, and then it just doesn't allow us in the States to have any type of reasonable conversation because you can't get any people together to ever have any voting power. There's no power to lobby. There's no unified group, and if there's someone trying to unify, they always have the same system. When we were trying to put medical cannabis started in California in '96, but when we went to go cement medical rights into California, I was working with the original architects of Prop 215, and we were dealing with people that were coming in and saying, if you're not willing to do this, you won't get any rights. And I said, but there's a free rider principle in life that some people just should benefit for the fact that they're alive. It doesn't have to be every single person does the exact same thing. But if you're going to exclude people because you're doing something, be clear that you're doing it for your own benefit. It isn't like you're a humanitarian. And I used to trip out because I was like, anybody who wants to be a leader is dangerous because leadership is fucking responsibility. And you learn that in the military, right? So for me, like I'm clear that when you take a leadership position, you are taking on the responsibility of people underneath you. And that's not how we view leadership in America. We view it as I want to get up above the problem and let everyone else handle the shit. And it has to die in cannabis. This transition is ugly right now, but it has to die. The younger kids have to be able to come in and be more normal with it. And the smoking population is declining in the U.S. All drug consumption, well, alcohol and cannabis are definitely declining. So maybe with the decline, the lack of hyper profitability, maybe that's the generation that'll be able to have this conversation. But you get a couple of 45, 50-year-old white dudes in the room. Holy shit. It's a fucking bad time, boy.
Well, it's so much gatekeeping, like between genetics and what we're going to call it and how we're going to grow it. It's really funny. It turns into this like, no, I have the best. I do the best. This is the best. But there's no like, here's the cut, here's the SOP, here's what I'm doing, go be successful with it. It started off when I first started like growing herb, trying to figure that out. was difficult. This was like early 2000s. I'm like 15, 16 years old, and I'm just killing plants, reading what I can, doing the, whatever Rob Clark books, Greg Green books, whatever forum you can get into. Like, you're just trying to figure it out. And there's a few people like explaining shit, but nobody's really like helping. You know what I mean? So there was this.
Well, there's no
massive,
incentive
like,
to.
yeah,
There's no incentive to, man. Like, no one, like, sorry, I can't, I got a little bit triggered there. Like, because I felt the same thing when I was in my journey. And I was like, how the fuck is there no one here to guide the way and to help us? And there's no incentive to, because everybody's just backbiting off of each other's genetics. Like, there was this influx of genetics in the 60s and 70s from abroad. They've been worked to absolute death. And now everybody's just ripping off each other's shit. So there's just absolutely no incentive to be like, oh, well, I got it from here and this is what you can do with it. Because it's so hard to create a moat around your product to be able to profit in the first place, that it feels like you got to do what you can, and it just becomes pervasive then, because everybody's got the same incentive to protect what you have and don't share it because it'll lose its fucking value. It sucks.
yeah.
Would you disagree with that?
No, not at all.
Or
I
It's
would
100%
disagree,
right. It's tragic, but true.
but
Yeah.
I would push back a little bit, just insofar as, like, lots of people give me shit, and a lot of people from FCP and from this program that I've interacted with, I've sent them shit. And I do think that there is still a community of sharing and a community, a thing that could be called a community or a culture that is about coming together and sharing a thing and being passionate about that thing. And that's what brings all of us together. I mean, by and large, I think, we're fellow travelers, like-minded individuals, but I've found a lot of those people in cannabis. And granted, I also don't associate and don't put myself in a lot of zero-sum commercial kind of situations where, like, things have to be, my win at your expense sort of relationships. Those aren't relationships I like to be in. I would prefer to give back and, like, participate in the community,
Right.
than just take from it. And I think that there's a lot of those people, and I just want us to.
Oh, 100%. That's why I joined the
you're right.
FCP. That's why, that's why I
The
started
people in the
West Coast
chat,
thing.
like, are the people.
But what about the elite cuts though? Like, what about the elite cuts? If tomorrow you wanted to just touch some chem dog, or you wanted to touch something serious, like, how the fuck would you do that?
I mean, so,
Like
and I get,
Code
like,
Venom right
this
now.
is,
You call me on the phone and I send you a fucking copy.
well, yeah,
Like,
like,
you know what I'm saying?
but, like,
I was a pariah when I did that shit a long time ago. People were like, how are you giving these valuable plants to regular people? And I'm like, who the fuck am I? I'm a regular person too. Herb allowed me to escape a life that was savage. And so I just have a different perspective on sharing material, but it's just based off of the fact that the right plant can really change your life. But I know there's a lot of people like that too. To your point, Trev, the whole world isn't fucked. There's some, without question, some beautiful people, and I'm fortunate that I get to meet a lot of them. But I get to see a big population in general, and I'm like, whoa, we need younger people to come in who are more understanding of camaraderie, sharing, mutual development. And that's always been the fantasy for me, is mutual development. Many of us working simultaneously to better the situation we're in. And the illegalities we're still stuck in. Everybody wants to go back to what it was. And I'm like, it wasn't that the plant was better. It was that you got paid. Who the fuck doesn't want to make fucking $300,000 out of their garage, right? Like, help me understand. And that's not a sin either. It's just that was a window in time that you won't get back. For us that got to enjoy it, it was the best times in the world, because you could be reclusive and be affluent. And that's rare. That is rare in life, to be able to say, you know what? I don't want to play patty cake with corporate shit. I don't want to have to be at work at this time. If I want to work 28 hours in a row, I can. If I want to take Wednesday off to play with my daughter, I can. Like, we had real fucking lives. But we paid for it with massive penalties. But I wasn't doing this shit for the well-being of mankind. It was just that I was trying not to be a detriment to mankind in the process. I had an agenda. I wanted a quality of life. But I also wanted to see other people have a quality of life, and I wanted to let people who were needy get access. And so I know there's tons of people like that exist too, Eloise. It's just a matter of being able to create the frameworks. And that's why I always give such props to Pete for the Future Cannabis, because I've been playing with Pete for a long time, man, like from the beginning. And he's always created a platform that allows people to share information. He creates other channels that allow different people to be able to put their stuff out. Like this is the beginning of it. But when you know, it's like the toad venom. What, people paying $50K a cut for that thing at first, and I'm laughing, and I'm like, just give it a second. Who's that dude that was on First Smoke of the Day the other day?
Copycat.
I pay $20K and I'll have your employees steal it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? I'm laughing, and I'm like, look, I got you, but talk about some shady ass shit. Let me sneak into your life and pay you so I can abuse you. I'm just like, and it's a great podcast because it lets you see the realities of the industry we're in. But
Yes.
is that what we're trying to cultivate? Is that what you want the future of the people to be? Like when I'm 80, which will only be in 20 years, when I'm 80, I want to be able to see.
There's this duality in cannabis, Kev. There's the industry, right? This is like the one half of that duality is the industry and the dark side of it, and then there's like this slowly fading community, unfortunately, maybe growing. It's hard to see right now. But these are the people who kind of were in the trenches, and they started with, I want to help people. I'm making a little bit for my life, but this is primarily like, this is what I do, and helping the community I'm in is a big part of that. And so it's one of the things I struggle with all the time is there's the cannabis community that I'm familiar with, and then there's the commercial space that not is all bad. There's, you know, there's a tip that kind of fills in, but for the most part, that's the gnashing teeth of the drive for the money. I found this cut, I'm in this commercial space, so I'm going to sell this to commercial. And there's this big, like, they don't really give a fuck about the consumer. And then there's the side that does give a fuck about the consumer. They do give a fuck about the industry, but they're not making shit. Like, they're struggling to get by day by day. And it's one of the reasons why I started doing the Kush Coach, and another reason why I started with FCP, because there is this like area to break through where it's like you can do all of this yourself. You can source all of this. You can learn to make all of this. And at the end of the day, if you want to jump into that
And God bless
industry,
you if you
can
earn a
learn how to-
living doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
it's been like I look at everybody on this stage, and everybody is like a mom and pop doing their own hustle, and everybody in the chat, and it's like what I loved when things were first legal in California was everybody was a mom and pop. Like for me, I like it. If I could make enough money to be sustainable, feed my family, do what I love, and do it from home where I get to, like, as soon as I walk out of here, my 4-year-old is going to run into my arms, and it's amazing. And like, I think all of us would love to see a world where a bunch of us, and then we like collaborate with each other, and to Jeff's point, like make something out of nothing. That I love doing that, where it's like a business didn't exist here. Do you want to do something together? Like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And you like create something cool and interesting.
Communist anthem, or are we just waiting?
What's that?
I said, are you gonna queue up the communist anthem after this, or?
Well, no, but no, because it's commerce. It's just not like current American capitalism commerce, which just sucks. It's all big companies, lobbyists who influence everything. But if all of us could be making a living doing what we love, that would be amazing. Like that's all I ever think about it. If I could drag a bunch of other people with me to be like sustainably earning a living doing what they love and not going into like And the other thing, to Kevin's point earlier, is like the greed of wanting, like, how much money is enough, right? Like, where you're the Koch brothers and you're like, we could stop polluting the environment to make all our chemicals, but we would like more money. And so but if the rules are so in favor of almost sociopathic people being in charge of kind of how commerce happens in America and then obviously the world. So I like the whole kind of advocacy thing here. It's what I've found interesting is that it doesn't take a lot of money to be able to impact certain things. If like a bunch of people got together and like Trevor, we should have had more people when you were running for like not even in your community, right? But like what could people do from around the outside to help make some impact and start winning battles?
It's supporting it. For a while, right? I think I was in up to like the 62 universities, right? So 62 universities had coursework that I had created through a company that we're putting it up. And what it did is it let me communicate with a lot of fucking people. And I was getting all these older people that would reach out to me through like LinkedIn because they didn't know how to reach me directly, but they would hit me through LinkedIn and they'd say, I'm growing my first plant. I'm like 65 years old. I took a course from you in college,
awesome.
And I'm going to grow my first plant. I said, oh, let me help you out. And their joy of, I never had a professor. And it's funny because you call it, I'm like, I'm not a fucking professor. I'm a dope grower. So it was this interesting perception of who I was to them. But for me, I just wanted to see them be able to succeed. And it was helping them cultivate their own urban home. And it was to share in the journey with them, right? Where like they send me pictures and I would say, you know, this is an approach. And what I realized was that really has to be the future forward, is that we've got to get rid of the stigma, and the illegality has to be pushed back to where it is not in your face. And it's funny because all of a sudden now with Schedule 3, everyone's like, oh, it's legitimate now. Because most people need someone to tell them what's legitimate and what's not. The average human being doesn't seem to be able to have their own compass. They need someone to tell them the heading, and then they need to push them along the route. But with the reduction in that stigma, we should get a huge influx of individuals coming in that can be aficionados in their own world. And that starts to create what we're seeking, which is basically the healthy community. I don't think we're ever going to go back to getting paid in the way we do. Like I work in this world because this is where I love to be. And people ask me, you know, what are you going to do after you're done with weed? And I said, crawl in a box and die, because this is where I want to spend my life. Like, this is where I'm happiest. I love what I do. I just love it.
This goes back, Kev, and I think with cannabis specifically, there is no done with cannabis. This plant, like you said, is so plastic. Like, what are you gonna, there's so much shit. Like, by the time you're like, okay, I'm done with the cultivation side of it, you've got another 90 years of learning the straight chemical side of it. You know what I mean? Like,
we're putting seeds into space, Jeff. We got seeds going into space for mutagenesis testing, right?
Yeah, I'm doing
because
that.
Science,
I got seeds that are launching into space in January.
Yeah, I got them going up. I'm going up with Martian Grow. And someone
you're gonna be in the same rocket.
Me on that, like, what a perversion. And I said, no, you don't. You're not catching what's happening. You're seeing the legitimatization of the fact that cannabis is an essential plant in the human world. That it's such an incredibly efficient bioreactor, and it does so many amazing things, that to discredit it and not put it into Noah's Ark basically is a crime. And I said, and that's the point. I said, that's why I'm excited. I said, you act like they're not doing space testing right now. Mutagenesis testing is how the #1 wheat variety in China was found. So more people eat a variety of wheat in China that was sent up in space that produced an unbelievable yield from that mutation That's what they use. And I said, so like the purpose is, I said, I get somebody yelling at me, there's no value in space. And I'm like, you're talking shit to me over a fucking laptop. That was invented for space. The cell phone, space. Cordless power tools, space. Right? All that shit is space-based technology that trickled down to us.
People get fired up over shit they don't technically understand, or they don't want to understand, or they refuse to acknowledge that something beneficial because that falls in line with their other set of beliefs, with whatever they line up with. Like, me and Peter talk about this all the time, like when we're having a conversation, like, can you look at this from an almost non-biased perspective? Even though you have a bias, can you separate yourself from that for a second and really look at something in this, I don't want to say logical, but like, can you look for all of the benefits and then also look at all of the negatives and truly non-biasedly weigh the pros and cons of this? And you do it in every conversation, including when we're talking about nomenclature. You ask yourself, is this worth getting into the weeds over, or am I just going to accept I know what they're saying? You know, because you can totally steer the conversation and be like, whoa, we don't call it that, and completely derail the whole thing and get onto this pointless subject. Or you can continue on with the major point of the conversation and get into the weeds and get into depth of something that really matters. And so the same thing when we're talking about like what we gain from sending seeds into space is essentially more knowledge that we didn't have. Right?
And recognition that this is not a plant that's been demonized. Exactly. Right. So that's the part that let me really like enjoy the process, was that, well, wait a second, you're finally getting people to say, hey, this plant has value too. And for all of us, we've known it, we've used it. And for me, I was late to the med game in terms of like, I had so many years prior to 96 that I was in cultivation, and then 96 comes along, and then all of a sudden now you start to be able to spend time with people, and it's anecdotal, but you're clearly able to see the benefits and the results. And that allowed me to really start to, without question, open up my comprehension of what herb is. Right. Because I had a limited view, and I talk to people all the time. I said, I didn't get into herb for fucking humanity. I got into it because it was in the neighborhood. It was either you're an armed robber or you're a drug dealer. And I like pot. The people that sold pot had a good life. Cocaine, heroin, all the other drugs, they were fucking sprung out. Violent dudes ruled the neighborhood, but that's, you live and die by the sword. But the herb dealers, as a little kid, the herb dealers were the happiest people. Right. And I said, you know what? If my life is fucked, I would like to go that route. And it's funny because someone said, well, you should have went into the doctor. And I'm like, well, that wasn't really one of the career choices at that moment. But being an herb was, and I never regretted it, because what it did is it allowed me to have a great life. And over the course of it, it allowed me to become much more cognizant of the complexity and value of the plant in ways that I never understood. So when I tell people why I get into it, I wanted to get paid and have a better life. People are like, oh my God, that's just so simple and callous. And I said, it's not what got me into herb. It's what I did when I was in herb, trying to do the best I could with what I had. Well, I said, that's the impact, right?
Obsession. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we get so judgmental on it. And I try not to judge so much. I try just to allow me to enjoy my life, because shit, you get to, like, for us, like, if you've been in the game your whole life, most of your friends are in the game your whole life too, right? They're wild. They're all fucking dying, man. I'm visiting people in the hospital. We're burying friends. 60 is a long life if you've been in the hustle, right? You put a beating on yourself, and all of a sudden this clarity of like, whoa, I'm so grateful I'm still here. You just want to be able to enjoy the time, and you want to be positive, and you want to try to support people around you so that they can succeed too. Herb gave me a great life. There's no word for the experiences and the people I met. And so for me, I've a debt to still maintain, be cool to people. And you try, and nobody's fucking perfect. You all fuck up. You make mistakes. You make bad business decisions. You make bad relationship decisions. You're human.
You know,
We're fucking human.
one of the things I think draws a lot of us into cannabis, I mean, aside from, you know, the medical, well, and I guess physically medical is, I mean, how many times have you taken a couple pulls off a joint and went from like absolutely enraged to really humble? Like the plant humbles you. The cannabis will humble you, whether you're cultivating it, whether you're just smoking it. And I think that goes into like why all the dudes you saw selling herb were relatively chill, is it does kind of changed your perspective on some stuff, and not for everybody, but I think when you really get into the depth of what cannabis can do, it really does kind of bring you down on this level where it's a lot easier to communicate with people. It is a lot easier to share with people. It is a lot easier to I don't want to say like form a commune, but it makes working with a community and building a community really easy. Like this cat here in town set up this cannabis cup here locally, and he was like looking for, I was like, all right, you got to pick the judges out and I'll kind of help everything. And immediately, like, these cats came over, we went through like a quick rundown, like little calibration setup, and now it's like every Thursday we're getting together and having a session talking about, you know, just herb in general. So it automatically like can bring folks together relatively quickly. And it's because it does humble you in a point where you can just kick it with anybody. And then you start hearing about, you know, all the shit everybody's going through and like why I started using cannabis. You're like, oh shit. All right. Brings you back on the same. You're like, oh, we're all in the same fucking boat.
No, without question. I had a grow house because remember, I used to build houses everywhere, right? So I had a house in the hood, and the neighbor that was to the left was this Mexican brother who was into the heroin business, and the other neighbor on the side was a black dude who was into crack, right? That was his sales, and I had the grow house. And so every morning when I would go to the spot, we'd all meet at the corner of the yard where the 3 yards touched, and we would smoke. I would come up and we'd party, hang out, and the Mexican cat, he's puffing, and he said something that was so profound it stuck with me, and that shit had to have been 1997, you know, like that far ago. And he was like, man, he goes, the reason why this shit's outlawed is because we're supposed to be hitting each other instead of hitting this blunt. And it was this recognition that the herb was bringing, because, you know, I'm New England white, right? Like white, Caucasian white, and 3 radical different cultures, 3 radical different methods of survival in the world we're in, right? They were using the tools that work for them. I'm using the one that works for me. But in the morning, we'd meet at the corner of the fence and we'd blaze. And they'd go do their shit and I'd go do mine. But it was that reality that herb does bring people together in a non-violent manner. It takes away judgment. I've always called it the same thing. It's the golden thread that weaves dissimilar people together. And I think that's one of the major reasons why it was so heavily criminalized, is that it was so dangerous. And that's what you saw with Nixon. I mean, you know, the original banning of cannabis was industrial purposes, but as it got forward, they didn't want people to be able to get along. And so the irony is that herb, the substance that brings people together, the divisiveness over arguing who's in charge, what's right, what's best, is insane. It was funny. I was with Todd Holmes doing Todd Holmes is a professor at Cal, and he's part of the legacy of cannabis history that Caleb's involved in. And we were talking about the helicopter persecution. I said, oh, that shit's still rampant. And as I'm talking to him, the helicopters descend over my house. And it's all private funded now, right? And I'm cracking up and I'm like, bro, they know I'm talking to you, so they're over here fucking giving you a show. And we were dying because it's 2026 and you're still getting hammered with military level raids. And it makes it so that it reaffirms that there must be something wrong with it. Like, it's so imperative to keep creating the narrative of the danger, the demonization. They show photos of grows and they say, This is where human trafficking occurs. Imagine being trapped in this grow. And I'm looking at the commercial and I'm like, that's up on the fucking ridge that looks down at Garberville. If you were at that farm, you could see Garberville. So how the fuck are you ice? You can just walk down the goddamn hill. But the communication is still so draconian because the system that they created around it is so unbelievably lucrative in enforcement. You need to have privatized prisons. You need to have a criminal justice system. You need to have this massive extraction. And for us, we're all still living in that world, and we're it's all the time. What did I see? I saw some person online saying, if you weren't crying in the shower 20 times a year over the game, you're not real. And I'm laughing. I'm like, I've cried in the shower probably since I was fucking 4. There's no criteria that dictates a good player in the game other than play the game. And we fight so much internally that they don't even have to create the problem anymore. Like I keep saying the same thing. My hope and dream is that the younger generation that comes in, we're decent to them and we allow them access to our experience. And we say, this is what I've noticed. This is what science says. This is the gray area in between. And so that way what you get is you're able to make your own decisions. You're able to say, look, not everybody is meant to consume herb. Not everything is what it seems. You have to make your own decisions. And that way
there's so much to that. And I think it all starts with where's the science and where's the nomenclature? Because those are the things we argue about more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and sometimes it's dumb shit. Sometimes it's like really rational, logical, and it really is this like, no, I'm trying to help.
Enter
right?
Nikolai Vavilov.
Yeah. So like one of the hills I'll die on is the trichome ripeness thing, because some of the stuff that we hold on to is so outdated, and it's like no. That has there's a point to that, but it's not what you're applying it to. And so the same thing with like nomenclature, and there's these hills that like older growers will die on. There's these hills that like the scientific community dies on. And I think the ones that are the most divisive mainly fall into what do we call things. I still see the like, is water a solvent or not? And I'm like, this is the dumbest conversation.
That's a hot topic right there.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, we can talk about what we're using it for, and we can talk about the science behind it, but it's like you said, there has to be this gray area in the middle that's kind of defined. There has to be like what it looks like when you're in the thick of it, and there has to be this like, this is the scientific realm of it. And if we can all agree on those areas, then it's really easy to hand that down to the younger generation, should we be willing to teach them. You know what I mean? Like that's really the part that we always argue about, is what do we call things and how is this executed in botany? Everything else is, basically based off of what's the best, what's the biggest preference. Like the rosin BHO argument is one of those things that kind of baffles me, because I know what I like, but I also understand what quality can be. So to objectively say rosin is better than BHO is really difficult, because I've seen really high quality in both cases.
Oh, without a question. It's cultivar dependent.
I prefer. Yeah.
It's cultivar dependent. Some shit doesn't wash, some shit blows better. We're constantly judging everyone on what their bias and a preference, and I'm just like, look, I don't give a shit what you smoke or what you do. It's not for me to tell you what to do. I'm not omnipotent. I'm not in a position of authority to tell. I can barely keep track of my own fucking life. So, you know what I mean? Like for real, you have to just back up on it. And that's why I don't like when it's funny when people, you do enough work long enough and you get known well enough, all of a sudden you get this fucking guru status. And I laugh because I went from pariah to messiah. And I think I enjoyed the pariah better because basically you got to be left alone. But once you hit a level of notoriety, all of a sudden, you know, everyone wants your opinion and it's just your opinion. And so it's just like, whoa, and you got to learn to take yourself with a grain of salt too. You have to be able to say, look, I'm just me. And that's what I know is the deeper I dive, the less I know. And the more I enjoy it. Like, I don't know if I've ever enjoyed the work that I do. I enjoy it now most because there's a purity to it that you reach this curve of saturation in knowledge and then you go back down the other side and it's just this recognition that how little you really know. And it allows you to just enjoy. I don't think I've ever enjoyed the work that I do more than I do now, even though the system is so crazy. Really, like, I don't like the industry. I think the industry is a fucking disaster, just a horrific disaster. And living in Humboldt, man, it just ate everybody alive. The wars we went through. Fuck, I had to fight for 8 years over water rights and shit, and I won. But for 8 years, I'm fighting for something that was just a control. And I'm like, so I spent 8 years in court to finally be okay. We agree now. So you know, it destroyed so many people. We had, 15,000 recorded farms. We got like 350 operational now. That's decimation. So you get to see what and for some people they did great, and I cheer them on.
What's crazy is it's also in a community where they've seen that movie before, right? Like timber came and went, and it was a disaster for us. Like the mining,
well, it's even more profound, Peter, because Humboldt went through a crash in the 80s when it was the transition from outdoor to indoor. So like Humboldt was an outdoor community that got cleaned the fuck out from federal raids and everyone got wiped out. And then they realized they could do it inside. And there was the miracle of the collapsing timber industry, which now allowed there to be all these people who had heavy equipment and ability to punch roads into mountains, to put bunkers in, to bring generators in. Because the fucking hippies weren't
all the required skills.
Right? So there was this hole, and I was so me and a bunch of old dudes were hanging out, and they were talking about that little bust. Now that cycle only lasted a little while, a couple years, until the indoor ramped up. But no matter what, these are these boom and bust cycles, and the one we're in right now will never reboom in the way that it did, because like they've made it impossible for anyone in Humboldt County to ever utilize the hills again. We're now into full military satellite surveillance. Like, you're in a surveillance society, which is funny because I saw Peter Thiel. No, it was not Peter Thiel, but it was who's Oracle?
Larry Ellison.
He was a quote of, these people need to be watched. We need this surveillance to watch.
I don't need to be watched.
And I'm laughing. I'm like, who the fuck's keeping track of your scandalous ass, right? So for all individuals, and in my conversations with politicians over the years, it was that we need to get all you growers out of the hills because your presence won't allow us to gentrify these places the way we want. And so the problem is that it wipes out all these individuals that were unique and odd, that had fucking interesting nicknames and did some crazy shit. It gave you a diversity and a population around you that allowed you to learn tolerance. Living in Humboldt let you be exposed to every single entity on earth. Anybody who wanted to come here and grow could grow. And it let me meet the most diverse group of humans on planet Earth, because Humboldt was covered enough with trees that they could hide and do their thing. And what we've done is we wiped it out, and now it's a couple people did all right, and then it's a category. And I say it's not people who are the best growers, it's people who can get the best funding. And that's a skill set all to itself. So what you have is these wholesale changes and complete catastrophes that I'm glad they're being documented, because at least it'll be able to let people in the future see what happens when change occurs and corruption aids in a removal of a population. So hopefully maybe this sets precedent and people are more aware in the future of like, oh, wait a second, we saw the path. Maybe we can make better decisions now. Now, does that mean it's going to happen? Who knows? But at least you try. It's the same deal of like, you know, it's my gal saves the spider in the house and puts it outside because the bottom line is it has a life too. So
I do that.
yeah, you know, it is. It's just about just trying not to create such a nasty impact on the world. And we've all made mistakes. Nobody is perfect. I haven't met anybody perfect yet. And I don't know if I ever will. But I know for a fact I'm not. And I have to wrestle with my flaws every day. And cannabis is a substance that helps me ground. And in the pursuit of understanding it, it lets me learn. And in the process of it, I met all these wonderful people that I got to have relationships with in really healthy ways that let me feel like I'm part of the human race, right? So I that's what I wish for all the individuals coming in, that they get a chance to be able to experience an amazing plant, and they don't have to be throttled back by clicky shit, you know, who's in control. My dream is I don't even fucking there's any dispensaries. Even when I had dispensaries, I fought for Homegirl. I fought everything I fought for was opposite of what would have benefited me specifically, because I know that at some point in your life, you always return to where you begin. And what I wanted was to return to a place that was pretty good. People were so adamant about, why the fuck do you fight for medical rights? Why do you do all this shit when it conflicts with your goals of what you're doing? And I'm like, but it doesn't. It's the fact that people who don't want what I want should be able to benefit. And at some point in my life, I might return to this. So it was worth the fight. It was worth putting all the money into fighting Humboldt County to get the medical rights installed. We have a fucking phenomenal medical program in Humboldt, right? Phenomenal. Compared to anybody else, that shit cost me time and money. And I went to war over that as a single entity. That wasn't like a support system. I fought for California rights with the team from 215 Architects, me and Terrence Allen. But with Humboldt County, at the time, the business was so booming that I had the ability to fund the research, fund the development, and we were able to argue and fight and win. And it allowed there to be pretty good rights in Humboldt County for cultivation outside. You get your 6 from the state, and then you get an allotment of canopy that nobody can bitch about. As long as the offset from the fence is far enough back, fuck you is the answer. That needs to be what people deserve. You should have the ability to cultivate and enjoy a craft that has been in play for countless fucking years. We have no idea the real time frame because all we do is use recorded history. Right. It's kind of like weather forecasts. So it's the greatest storm in history. Yeah, it's in the last 150 years. It's the biggest storm.
So that kind of goes back into the beginning of the conversation is, does the wording in the legal framework that really allows that to happen on a big scale matter? You know, when we're talking about strain versus variety versus cultivar, does that really matter when we're talking about how the wording in something in some legal framework is going to affect a community like that? Did I say that right? I think. Yeah,
you did it. It's just that what would help is common language allows people to not have disagreement. And when you look at it, I don't research it. I rely on guys like Trev. I read his shit because he does the research on it. Right? Like, I do my own shit. People
We're all cheering him on
deeply. And I look at Caleb. I look at all of you. I look at all of you for reference, because if someone's like, you know, do you research that? I said, fuck no. I'm busy doing my own shit. I said, I can't live and die 24/7 in the weed game. I said, I got kids I want to spend time with. I love my gal. I want to spend time with my woman. I'm like, you got to have a life. And so I can only do so much. So I do what I do really intensely. And then I rely on other people I respect to be able to let me access their material and take a look and say, whoa, that's fascinating. That's a direction that we probably should go. And I defer to those people. I don't argue with them on the research they did, because I know that my opinion would only be emotional. It wouldn't be factual, because I'm not doing the homework. But on the shit that I'm doing my homework on and working on, oh, I can fucking support that.
Right.
But on anything else, I just shut up. And I just shut up and just listen. I say, well, that's fascinating. And I take notes, and then I can say, well, I'm going to go look that up too, so I better understand.
Right.
But that's community. And it's imperative that we give each other the space to be that direction. It's okay. It's okay to let go of the reins of control. Just let go. And it's difficult because for so many, herb was a status. Your rank was the cut. Like all the time, these are my cuts, and I'm like, did you read them? No. Then there's someone else's fucking cuts, right? So like, you got it from someone else. You're benefiting from other people's work. It's the free rider principle, man. You're riding on the back of others. It's okay. Just make sure that you further that development. It's okay. It's okay to take benefit, but don't hold it fast.
Right.
That's where for me sharing material was critical, because I got raided too many goddamn times. I was doing too much criminal shit.
Yeah, you just got to get it out there.
Yeah, I shared the material so that it lives and exists, and then 10 years, 11 years later, I bump into somebody in another fucking state, and they're like, bro, I still got that cut. And I'm like, what cut? The one you sent me 11 years ago. And I'm like, what? I don't even fucking remember. And I go, oh, you got to be kidding me. You're holding the copy. And all of a sudden, the copy reemerges into my hands because it had been taken from me. That shit is it's critical. And it is so controversial, the amount of shit that I caught over the career of sharing material, and it's never ending. But people don't understand that, like, without us working collaboratively, we had no security.
Mm-hmm.
We had none. And so the ability to not lose the things you love, the ability to introduce
a distributed repository.
Yeah, and all the young cats that I helped out when they were young, like, teenagers, they're all in their fucking 40s now. And I get to watch their lives, and I get to see what they're doing in cannabis. And it's phenomenal for me because I get to enjoy watching someone who I liked, that I thought was a good person, that I put some effort into. And I just get to step back and watch them live their lives and do great shit. And then I get to learn from them. But there's a beauty to it. It's an elegance of being involved in development of people, but not having to take their fucking shine. I don't have to scream out top, it's because of me, you fucking or somebody. No, it's not. It's that I just was somebody who was kind enough to help you when you needed help. And the good deed was I needed it. I fucking needed it. It's not so pure altruism. It's I need to be around things that are decent too, so that I can feel like I'm living a healthy life.
Right.
There's a need. There's a need to be like, it's selfish. I have a selfish interest. I want to be around positive shit.
It's just so
You know
exhausting
what I mean? I fucking
being
need
wound up about dumb shit.
Or otherwise, man, my background was fucking dark. I don't want to. I'm like, let me keep moving that way, and then I don't have to live in the memories of times past. It's cathartic.
Right. Yeah, it is a lot easier to be a little passive than it is. That's kind of how I see it. Like, you really start to pick your battles.
You're not aggressive, and you got
used
attacked
to be.
one time,
That's
Jeff.
kind of the thing. Like,
but you got attacked one time, and I sent you some information. I said the person that's attacking you is attacking you personally. It had transcended the issue. It became a personal attack, and I took that shit personal because I was like, you motherfucker. And so I sent you information. I said, this person opens their mouth, you say this will shut them up right now.
Yeah.
And you said, I don't want to do that, Kev. And I said, oh, you know what? You're a good guy, Jeff. I said, I respect that. And I didn't get on it to attack anybody because I try not to attack people online. But I was so angry that they were attacking you for who you were as a person. I know you, right? I'm like, that's a fucking good guy. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Here, you need, I call it the Lancelot Link lunchbox. When I was a kid, man, the school was violent. And I had a metal lunchbox that I would hold, and I would use it as a fucking sledgehammer. And I'd come home and it was all dented. And I was a little dude, right? So I had to fight for my life. And my mother be like, why is your lunchbox all dented?
Dented
I
with
wouldn't
the heads of
explain it,
other
but I remember the
7-year-olds.
Lancelot Link. Yeah, Lancelot Link was a cartoon as a kid. But I'm like, everybody needs a Lancelot Link lunchbox that you can use to smash fucking bullies in the head with. And I was giving you the Lancelot Link lunchbox, and you were just like, no, it's okay. I don't need to respond in kind.
Yeah,
And it let me see you in a really, really beautiful way, because the attack on you personally was fucking brutal.
Yeah.
And it was unjustified. It was so fucking ad hominem, but your response to it was, I don't want to do it. And I'm like, it's okay. Well, here's the lunchbox if you need it. If they open their mouth, smack them in the fucking head. But your approach was purely, I am going to be civil and I'm going to be kind. And that's still who you are today.
Yeah, and that's, at least on the internet, I'll tell you right now, at least on the internet, that's how you find resolve. Because I can't reach through the screen and punch the dude in the face. You know, he said that shit to my face. That's the thing. It's always a little different story in person. On the internet, I'll give myself a heart attack if I was like trying to fight everybody that was talking shit. So there's this point of just like, it's just not worth getting into. It's too exhausting for me. I gotta like, it becomes like this emotional investment almost, where it's like, fuck this guy online. Like I gotta tell him. Like I just can't. It's just not worth it. In person, and I appreciate your outlook on me, Kev, but in person, it's kind of a different story, because it is.
No, in person's a different deal. But the internet is a place where it's not who I'm speaking to, it's who's following the conversation. And if I attack you, people will believe I'm going to attack them. And I don't want you to see that. And I hopefully what we're doing is we're creating a level of dialogue exchange that allows people to realize you can communicate without throwing fucking rocks at each other. And shit happens, man. We all have dispute, and there's always shit that happens. But at the end of the day, can you work past it, find common ground, and go fucking forward?
Well, and that's how you resolve all the nomenclature issues. And that's kind of like, I'm really landing on that, because it is so important, because we get so worked up over like saying over a word, and it turns into like a fight. And it's like, well, if you just kind of chill out for a minute, you can do that whole thing. But at the end of the day, like, let's at least try to agree on what this is, how we're using it. And then it expands into the world. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things. Like one of the things Frenchie was on was like keef. And that's one I can't define what keef is, but in certain areas, keef is different than what we consider keef. I'm not going to correct everybody that shows me the bottom of their grinder, No.
What do you gain? It's how many times do you write a retort on a post and then delete it? Like, I delete all of them, dude, because I realize I'm not adding any value. I'm basically just, it lets me enjoy life better, man. I'm like, that's part of it, man. Herb doesn't have to be brutal, man. Herb was wonderful because it lets you make enough money to have time. And business people are always in horror. They're like, what do you mean? You were at the river all day. I said, yeah, that's the whole fucking point. I was at the river with my dog and my kid. Yeah. And they're like, but you could have had more shit. I said, yeah, but that's your dream. Your dream is more shit. My dream was just a good fucking life. I had enough. All the bills were paid. There was security, and there was opportunity to have a good time doing healthy shit. So if that's not your desire, that's fine, but I'm not going to let you rain on my fucking parade, because when I'm hanging with my children, they're like, Dad, it was great time hanging out. Like, we had time to just hang out. And I didn't have any of that, right? My fucking background was different. So I wanted to be able to create a world for my family that I didn't have, but not in a you're going to live the life I wish I did. It's just that I'm going to get to live my life with you, and I'm going to get to enjoy it. And Herb is funding it. It's and because of it, it let the kids be part of the job. All the kids, my kids help pull tarp. When I'm out of town, they were like yanking tarp.
Right.
Because we needed, I have to put it in. Does that mean we're corrupting them and putting them into the industry? No. I never let my oldest son get into the hustle. I just said, look, do me a favor, tell me what you need, and I'll fill that hole so that you don't have to get into the grind. I would just prefer it if you didn't. I love you. You've been in with me. Like, I can put you in safe places. We can put you into good stuff. But like, the idea is we don't have to have generational felonious activity. I would rather there not be generation after generation of fucking felony. And I'm all expunged, right? So it's hysterical because all my charges were all weed related, right? And the ones I had as a kid were juvenile. That all got wiped out when I got 18. And then I pick up another set of charges in 2001, right? Another whole set of cases. But I was able, because of fucking financial money from weed, that I could afford enough lawyer power to fight so long that they eventually capitulated and said, all right, let's cut a fucking deal and we'll wobble, we'll do some bullshit. But if you didn't have that much money to afford teams of lawyers to keep doing discovery and dragging the shit out until they fucking new DA comes in, I was doing 6 straight. So I don't want to do 72 fucking months in San Quentin. Right? My brother was in San Quentin. He comes back. He's like, yeah, he goes, you got to wrap your neck with the towel and shit, because when they come in to kill you, this way it'll slow them down. And I'm laughing, and I'm like, you know, maybe 72 months in San Quentin ain't a good fucking time. So legal fees are expensive. Herb allowed me to fund the lawyers to be able to do this, but most people, they can't. And if it's a federal case, it doesn't make a goddamn difference. You got mandatory minimums, right? So if you were fed, you screwed. You're doing 85% of the bid period. And on state, it's just money. You just have to be able to have enough attorneys to fight and do. And so I have all this expungement. So when you run my records on a state level, they're clean. They only come up on the FBI database. Right. So like when I went and got my license, the FBI database is what pulls all that up. And then I had to write the letter of atonement of, I'm sorry that I did the naughty things I did so that I can now get a license today to do the same naughty things. Right. You have to write that shit. You have to write a letter of fucking contrition so that you can get your license. But it's all expunged. But the bottom line is I spent the majority of my life in the criminal justice system. I spent it as a kid. My fucking family spent it. I grew up going to prison to visit relatives. All my fucking friends were in prison. I got friends in prison the rest of their fucking life now. It's just, you see the system as this meat grinder, and you just really crave a healthy life. I didn't want my kids to be anywhere near that shit. I'm like, look, this is what I do. This is that's up, but I'm going to do my best to keep you out of it. Like, you have to be around me because I'm your father. And unfortunately, this is who I am. But, you know, I'm like, you don't need to set up a house. Just tell, like, if you need more money, I'll give it to you. If you need a place to live, I'll get you an apartment. But I don't want you sparking up and doing some shit so you get caught up. I don't need to have you fucking get shot in a drug deal. Like that, like if any of that shit occurred, man, fuck, what's the point of being alive? You know, and each person chooses their values. But for me, with my children, I was very protective of the fact that I just didn't want them to repeat my path. They didn't have to. My path was set in motion because of life. It wasn't really a fucking choice as much as a reality.
I think that's one of the things that kind of creates division in the cannabis like space is there's still a large group of people still alive that have been through that. You know, they've lived kind of the life that you've lived, Kev. And then there's people that are basically just raking in the cash that have never put in that kind of work. And I'm not throwing any shade towards them, but I know there's some animosity there. Like, how are you allowed to be in this big ass space when I was in the system the whole time, trying to keep my family from being in the system? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not justifying it by any means, but I know it's there. Like, I can see it.
I call it just good fortune.
You know what I mean?
It's just good fortune that you were in that position to benefit from it. I don't hate on you. What I hate on is people in high positions that are pricks to people who aren't. That's what I don't like. I fucking hate bullies, man. As a kid, right?
Yeah.
Like I learned as a kid, the way you deal with bullies is you fucking smash all the teeth out of their mouth. And I don't give a fuck if you have to put a rock in a sock or a fucking metal lunchbox. You hurt those motherfuckers and they don't fuck with you again. And our society loves bullies. And our current administration, and I'm not political, but our current administration, it fucking fosters that mentality. And for me, I'm like,
agree.
whoa, just don't do that shit. If you're in a position above somebody, don't fucking step on their head. And I'm like, they just don't catch it that eventually you go up a ladder, you're probably going to come down the ladder. And you're going to have to deal with the people you stepped on in the process. So it doesn't have to be that you're a good person. Just be clear that you won't benefit from fucking people over and then having to exist around them. That's why all these fucking billionaires are hiding in their fucking their caves in other fucking parts of the world. And I'm like, if that's success, then I'd rather die. If that's what we have to do is hide in a cave so the rest of the world
everybody
can
hates
cannibalize
me.
itself, I'm like, I'm fucking good.
Right.
I just don't like it. I don't like it. I try not to be a bully to people. And I'm a ball buster too. I'm somebody who likes to fuck around. But there's a point where it's ball busting and there's a straight point where you're hurting people.
Yeah. And
you have to be clear about that distinction. And if you recognize you did something wrong, you just gotta say, hey, I'm sorry. And atone for it honestly and just say, look, I'm flawed too. But that's the cannabis industry, is that everyone at the top, the extreme top, it's just corruption. And then there's some people who just got, lucky where they didn't come in first. In Humboldt, it was every one of us that came in first got cleaned the fuck out because we were the ones that they were going to suck dry. And then they make all the errors. And then they say, okay, we'll make it easier. The people who came in then had a much more clear path to success quickly. But the vast majority of us that came in early, like I'm one of the only ones that still has a fucking license.
Right.
Like most of them got knocked right out. And I'm not even growing on my farm. I built it. I let it sit fallow because it's such a fucking nightmare to have to deal with the legal system that I would rather just hold the farm and let it chill until this shit straightens out than work on a project that I don't get compensation for fairly and learn to hate the craft I love. Like I had to separate it. I just said, let me just put this to the side and let me bleed on it. And let me work on other things. Let me do other directions so that I don't hate the craft I love so much.
Right.
And there's a bitterness in the industry that's unbelievable. And I get to watch it. There was a while back, you got to see everybody, I gave up my life for a plant. And I'm like, bro, you didn't give up your fucking life for a plant. You gave it up for yourself. You act like you're some kind. People tell me all the time, we single-handedly saved cannabis. And I'm like, bro, it's been existing in Asia for fucking millennia. Well, it's somehow what they weren't involved. It was only North American cultivators that did the fucking service of God.
Right.
So we have some weird views on our role and how we treat others and how we behave, and ultimately be nice to the people around you and do the best you can. And when people ask you questions, if you can answer. And if you can't, say, I don't know, and point to the person who does. And all of a sudden, you without question, enhance the overall knowledge of everyone. Because when someone asks you a question and you tell them, I do not know that, it takes away that God complex shit. Yeah. Because you're admitting that you're fucking not that knowledgeable.
It's find your corner and crush it. You look at Lobster and Rotten down here, just in the constant grind, dude. Every time they're on the show, they're just either trimming or watering or doing some shit. Peter's always, doing his little thing at the computer. He's always fucking with seeds and some shit.
Although the orders I pack while I'm high and doing these shows are like more mistake prone than when I'm not high and talking at the same time.
But yeah, it's like finding this corner and just crushing that and not acting like you're the whole weed gang.
No, because none of us are. We all together, we form a really, really fascinating community because our minds are all diverse and different. And I got lucky that the one of the programs I was involved in introduced me to 1,500 people and 400 graduates, right? So like it allowed me to see a world that was just really diverse because I was just like, wow, I always believe, I think I got more out of it than anybody because I got to meet so many awesome people to help me see their perspective. And I was there to teach them what I knew, but I was also sucking them dry on what they knew so that I could benefit too. And then what it does, it creates teamwork. It lets you have people that you know you can play with and do cool shit with.
Or
What
I
a
don't
good
have to
life.
remember anything because I have all these people who remember shit.
Totally. And well, you
Can be a
can't,
blank
you
slate.
want time for your life. It's like this whole fucking grind culture bullshit. I laugh too because I'm somebody who fucking works 7 days a week. Like my energy level is abnormally high. Like I can fucking go and go and go and go, but that doesn't mean it's healthy. It's a response to survival, right? So I know that my shit is definitely not balanced. And when you look up the word quality time, that shit was created by psychologists to fucking alleviate the concern of parents who were no longer taking care of their kids because they were at work to survive. And they let them know an hour a month of quality time is equal to the whole month that you were away. That's all bullshit, right? And so this whole fucking culture of work yourself to death is so that you're a fucking slave. And Herb allowed a lot of us to have time. And someone was like, what were you doing up there on the hill? I said, I was smoking a joint, just thinking about what? Whatever the fuck I wanted to. The gift of free time. How is that bad? How is that a waste? Explain to me, you know, that the day at the beach, what'd you guys do? Nothing. We just walked on the beach all day. Kids collected shells and I just watched the waves and I was fascinated by bird formations and shit and how they float. I'm like, isn't that adequate stimulation to be considered valuable? Mm-hmm. So like herb is a world that is so controversial because once you really get exposed to it, it allows you to separate from the paradigm that you've been basically indoctrinated into. It's kind of like when I was a kid. Remember, they would tell you need to learn complex math because you won't have a calculator in your pocket. And I said, you're right. We have a fucking supercomputer in our pocket. Do I really need this if I'm not a mathematician? If I don't intend to be a fucking engineer, do I need to know this? Do I need to understand fucking calculus if I'm not trying to understand the area under a curve? Is it really essential for me to be that person if that's not who I am? Right? Can I focus on where I'm good? Can I focus on what I enjoy? Can I focus on my fucking life? And we've created a situation where we're basically only focused. It's kind of like the Tate brothers, right? Those two weird ass dudes. They get caught up with some criminal shit, and now they're lawyers defending them. And every fucking single thing of their life is a total fraud. Their money is creating education for men to learn how to be baller men, and they're fucking broke. And they're weirdos and shit. And it's so fascinating to see the sheets pulled off. And you're like, people worship these dudes. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, they're not fucking real. But we look at this presentation of what is
the Kardashians.
Oh, same thing. The mother is the single best marketer in human fucking history. Nobody.
I'm gonna put my daughter in a porn.
Yes, and then I'm gonna popularize
and plaster
it all
for the world to watch.
The story is so insane that it's hard to believe. But I'm like, I got you there. And someone's like, yeah, but they're all billionaires. I'm like, you know what? I don't need $1 billion. I don't need the yacht. I'm happy being at the beach, and I'm someone who lived on the ocean, right? I'm like, I'm happy just being at the goddamn beach. I don't need to be on a yacht. I don't need to drink fucking $40,000 alcohol. I just want to smoke good, clean weed. I want friends that when I call them on the phone, they come over and help me move a fucking couch. That's what I want. I want a friend to say, yo, can you come by and give me a hand, man? I gotta paint the house and I just need a hand. And then you're like, that's a real friend. That's what I want. I want to be able to live a life. And I'm not saying everybody has to have that or desire it. But for me, the aspirations of being able to get away from everything so that you can just do fun shit all day, I'm like, define fun shit.
Right.
Sitting with my friends, laughing is as good as it gets. Spending time with my woman. We laugh too because I'm like, if I had a normal life, I wouldn't be able to be up at 1:30 in the morning just hanging out, sitting on the porch looking at the moon with her. That's not a bad time. That's a goddamn gift. Being able to be home when my kids get home so I can see how their school day went, walking them to school. Like, how is that a failure? And that's what we've basically created, is that anything that isn't this massive success story that you can flaunt on others, it's kind of like fluffing the chain, right? Everybody's always flossing their chains in all the videos and shit. And I laugh because I get to fucking hang around with real billionaires. And when you're with them, you wouldn't fucking know they have any money. They're normal. They wear normal shit. They wear no designer shit. They don't need to wear it. The fucking designers put the clothes on them when they want to go out. It was such a revelation to be around true, powerful wealth and realize everyone is, I need to show you this shit so that you are impressed by my power and wealth. And I'm like, for me, that doesn't mean a goddamn thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, take off the fucking chain. You're still a regular person. And so herb to me is the working man's drug, working person's drug, men and women, you know, it's the working person's drug. It's blue collar. It is not the elite. The elite is cocaine and champagne, and you can have that shit. It's all good. You want to do it, go ahead. But herb is a different substance historically. And I like regular people. I like people that don't mind sitting in the back seat. Like for me, I'm short, right? So I would hop in the back seat of every rig. So because tall motherfuckers don't fit. And my guys would be driving around and I'm in the back seat. They're like, why is he in the back seat? I'm like, because I'm the fucking shortest guy in the car. Why wouldn't I be in the back seat? Like, I'm the only one whose legs fit back here. You know, it's
it is annoying when
shit.
someone really short grabs the front seat. And then
Yeah,
you
it
have
doesn't
like
make any
6
sense.
people
And
trying to get in
all
the
my
back.
dudes are fucking Samoan and Hawaiian and Fijian, you know, they're fucking monsters, right? So like they don't fit in the goddamn back seat. And so I'm always like, let me get in the back seat. And everybody laughs, but like it's okay. That's genuine relationships where you're trying to be normal. But our influencer shit, I hope it all fucking fades the fuck away because it's wreaked havoc on the kids.
Yep.
Wreaked havoc. And then the weed influencers, you know, they know how to make a good video and all of a sudden they're fucking demigods in herb. And I'm like, are you actually providing any value to anyone? Is anyone really benefiting from what you do or just you're really good at media?
Yeah,
and I don't fault you for being good at media, but at the end of the day, herb to me, I drew a picture of it, and I drew a picture of herb as a exhausted woman with all these young dudes hanging on her fucking back, bitching about how much they've worked hard for her. And she's dragging these fucking guys through life and shit. And I'm just like, fuck, if you gave back a little in any way, you would have a radically different impact on the future.
Mm-hmm.
Radically different. And that's what I want to see. And that's selfish. That's my own selfish desire, is to see a better cannabis world so that when I'm old, I can look at it and say, man, I get to live my life in herb and it's actually pretty cool. Look at this. You got young people creating really killer shit, bringing attention, doing positive things. And I still get to just be me and smoke and grow in my backyard and not trip. But I want to see a better cannabis world so that I can just gaze at it with happy eyes.
Right.
It's so simple, man, but it's so hard. It's so fucking hard. Hey, listen, Pete, you want to go? You want to do the thing we were going to do another time? I got to jump, brother.
Yeah.
We'll just jump on. We'll get on. We'll just do another
so
one. So
Kevin just sent in a bunch of kosher kush femme crosses. So we'll talk about it.
I had a nasty kosher I got out of Oregon that was fucking phenomenal. And I had a buddy of mine that was asking me to do a bunch of work for him on some hash cultivars to put that kosher on it, because the kosher, when it reversed out in the trials, it just really imparted that deep, penetrating, heavy, sharp gas with a fucking pulsing high. And so we laid it into the Z Burger, the Ice Cream Man, the Straw Guava, and the Trop Cookies, which was all for extract. And then I had a grenadine that was, it's hard to find, but it was the London Pound Cake to that Limoncello 88. And the flavor was fantastic, like just like grenadine syrup, but I wanted more power on it. And I wanted that flavor to merge with that kosher. And then I had that TPK, which the thing with OG cuts is like, you have a million names, but ultimately the TPK is kind of like the Hollywood in the sense that it's got like a burnt marshmallow kind of tone to it, gassy, complex, marshmallowy. And so I said, let's take that and then throw the kosher on it. Because what you get to is you're going to get some heterosis. You're going to get from the dissimilar gene, they're all related, but we're going to get an enhanced vigor in that progeny from that dissimilarity. So put a bunch of work together and put it out, and pack them with many per jar so that this way people have plenty, and go big. It's they're cutting this, the whole seed shit that's happening right now is fucking insane. And when this all took place, everyone was like, no, they're gonna reverse it. And I said, I went and took a look at the votes. I took a look at the politicians that voted for the bill, and you'd have to flip 30 of them to get it to change. And I said, you show me any bill in fucking history where 30 fucking representatives had to flip it. It flips 1 or 2 votes either way on the aisle. This would have been 30. And I said, they're locking this down. So it's odd because everyone, we all went into TC banks and we're into clonal shit. But the actual seed making, the ability to advertise, sell, do, is going to become, a federal liability. And, the thing is, I'm not worrying about it. And I'm like, until the feds come knock on your fucking door, because anything federal is really above your level to fight. It comes with minimums and it comes with a cost that's unreal. The federal government is not to be fucking played with legally. The beating they give you is unique. And so they really, 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 they allowed this, and to me, it's on purpose. They allow it to proliferate. They allow all this development to occur, and then they siphon it. It's just a brilliant strategy. And if we look at our industry, it occurs over and over again. We develop, we get normalization, we get utilization, and then bam, they get consolidation. So ride and run like the wind. And then, hopefully home growers are able to diversify and grow across the country. And that becomes like really our new sources of material. And you go back to sharing and private conversations.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll pick up the code. We'll talk again later.
We'll jump in, man. But thanks for having me come on. And this was a fantastic. My buddy hit me up and said, Kev, they're going into this topic online. You need to jump in. I said, I don't want to jump in. I said, because the truth is, I'm not really qualified to tell you how to document it, because that's not where I'm doing my research. And I know it because I'm following Trev's shit. So I'm watching what you're doing. I'm like, he's the one fucking diving into this shit. That's where you're going to get a really thorough understanding of how it happened, how we got here, maybe what we can do. I'm just going to give you an opinion that follows someone who's doing the work. So it's like, there's no reason for me to be here. And then I got on today and we go into it, but it's the same deal. Allow the people who are doing the work to help the rest of us understand an approach. And then that way we can get behind it and further it. So thank you for all the work you guys are doing, man. I love it because someone needs to do it. And it's being done by people who are smart, that are doing really, really good research. So salute.
Hey, much love.
Thanks for coming on, Kev. It was great.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah,
good to see you too. And man, that haircut is killing me, dude. I'm going to have to fucking cut my hair like that too.
We'll all come back next show.
We'll come back with
the same haircut.
My son goes and visits his grandmother. She's like 90, and she's going blind and old, but she was a hair cutter. So Kona. So he comes over to my house, and he's got little nicks on him that were like cuts, and his hair looks like it got run through a fucking lawnmower. And I'm laughing, and I'm like, he says, "Oh, Dad," he goes, "Grandma fucked me up, man." But he goes, "I had to let her though, like one last cut." And we were crying. So he had to go to another hair cutter. So he comes in, he looks like a fucking Marine now because all his hair got fucking hacked up. So they had to tighten it all up. But there's a cut on his eye and a cut on his ear. And yeah, because she's stabbing him with. But you know, she's a lovely woman, and she was a fantastic hairstylist. And so, in her mind, she's still that person, even though she has, no real ability to cut hair anymore.
She has
But he
Mr.
looks like he got
Magoo's
run through a
vision.
fucking lawnmower. It's hysterical.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love
All right,
it.
guys, be good, man. Peace.
All right,
let's
later.
Bye.
I saw in the comments someone asked what I was growing this year, and
Yeah.
So I'm growing the garlic or the Shiva Shanti reproduction that Golden Coast made. He got back to me and sent me like a picture of it, and after I had mentioned it on here a month or so ago. But those are looking great. They're really big. I'm also growing the Barb Natural Selection from Masonic, and also looking great. I've got like 11 of those going, like all together, the garlics and the barbs, and very big, doing great outdoors. We'll see how they, progress through flower. It's just triggered in the last couple weeks, and so we're about like week 2 into flower. Things look great, very stoked. Growing some Doc D's haze lines, the Nobody's Nursery selection of the church and the Blue Scream, and I'm smoking the Santa Cruz Pure Haze cross to the A5 back cross, and I have a selection from the 4 females that I ran of that outside. And it's like all NL5, really short, flowered in about 7 weeks indoors, triggered super fast outdoors. So I'm expecting it to be finished, like my first plant finished. Didn't get as much size and like stretch on it. It's definitely the smallest, but they were put in kind of late. Then I've got the Chem 91 Sour Dub and the Straw Guava Sour Dub from Gunja. Then I have a bunch of those actually Shords hazes as well, the Mexican Haze, Skunk Haze line. I have that crossed to Band-Aid Haze 2, Band-Aid Haze 3, and the Neville's Diesel. And I popped a bunch of Corolla seeds this year, or Corolla crosses, or not a bunch, a few that I ended up actually keeping. And so I've got a Jack's Cleaner Corolla that's awesome. Smells like Tiger Balm. Super menthol, very piney, terpene, like intense, burn your nose kind of thing. Liking how that's doing indoors. Then I also have a Velvet Buzzsaw Corolla that really reminds me of the Real McCoy from Flying Dutchman back in the day. A really unique, sweet pineapple that's different than the like Cindy pineapple that's out there, like that kind of realm of the pineapple. And I've got a bunch of these things backed up. It's the first year I've actually like had my shit on point and backed everything up. So I've got like clones, and I'll do selections hopefully, and just stoked on everything I'm growing and all the different breeders who make cool shit and give me cool shit and let me grow it out. And I'm also making a bunch of seeds. The male that I kept from the Doc D's Santa Cruz Pure Haze, insanely, air quotes, sativa, narrow leaf drug, haze, leaner, like it is 9 feet tall in a bucket and narrow leaves. Took forever to trigger, and I'm hitting that to everything that I've got and making a bunch of haze crosses. So that's what I've been fucking with.
That was awesome and very thorough.
Yeah, the whole rundown.
Uh, so I've been patiently waiting. I keep trying to subtly throw this up. You
Yeah.
want to give us maybe we can we can have the part 2 of what was going to be the part 1 some other time, but we can start. And it's a bummer that Josh is off because I think he could talk on this too. But you want to give us the intro to the topic?
Sure. Vavilov was a Russian botanist who really, like, he's known for a specific idea that he kind of developed, which was the idea that there are geographic centers for the origin of different plant species, and that they radiate outward, and that you can kind of tell through morphology and doing taxonomic analysis of plants where they're spreading and how they've spread, or if they're hybrids, and do all this kind of taxonomic work that's really important. And he was somebody who studied and got his training in like pre-Soviet, pre-Civil War Imperial Russia, but then like was an academic and lived and worked under and was really like a prestigious academic by the time of the like Soviet like Civil War and like that whole period. He went around and traveled and did a bunch of expeditions around the world to collect germplasm. And so he just went and collected seed and plant varieties from all over the world on all these different expeditions, brought them back, was particularly interested in cannabis, and came up with a number of descriptions and names for different cannabis varieties or botanical classifications for cannabis. He also trained a lot of people and had like a lot of proteges that kind of worked under him. He established the Vavilov Institute, or what became known as the Vavilov Institute, and it was the largest seed bank repository in the world at the time, and had collected germplasm of the most different plant varieties from all over. Unfortunately, during Stalin's like takeover and period in power, there was a bit of a intellectual power struggle between Timofey Lyshenko and Vavilov, and Vavilov, this like turned into not just like an intellectual dispute, but a political fucking purge, part of the Stalinist purge, where essentially Vavilov was believed to be an agent of of London or of Western imperial powers, and so he ended up in a gulag and died in a gulag. And a lot of his underlings, or like the people that he trained, essentially had to distance themselves from him in their subsequent writings or works that they did, and people who were like intellectually like counterparts to him ended up getting more were more prominent and pushed to the fore in like Russian botany and their analysis, which does intersect quite a bit with cannabis, because one, he investigated cannabis quite a bit, but on everything that he said, they basically made it like party doctrine that it was like the other position, or like, Yanushevsky's ruderalis became recognized versus his cannabis sativa var spontanicus or whatever, even though they were the same plants. And technically, Vavilov's was first. So, yeah, that's kind of the story of what happened with Vavilov. And he was a cool dude and did a lot of influential work that posthumously in Russia and elsewhere has been recognized as foundational and super significant. And also, David Watson and Robert Clark and Hortifarm worked with the Vavilov Institute back in like the early 90s after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and worked on trying to maintain and preserve some of the germplasm, and some of that germplasm went into creating phenola and some of the different hemp lines that got created back in the 80s and 90s. So that's, yeah.
Wait, sorry, I'm on mute. It is insane. Like how many countries he went to, how many different plants he amassed as a collection. I think it was like 100 and
It's an insane number.
he documented 3,000 types of wheat alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, no, his work is crazy, and it was also in a relatively short period of time because his life was cut short, and he was kind of at like the height of his productivity.
Like the Jimi Hendrix of seed collection.
Of the plant game.
Yeah, that's wild. I want like, what's your kind of analysis of the current state of seeds and seed diversity globally? In terms of like, you think of companies that want to control whole industries, so then will like Monsanto or like corn and wheat, but then there's obviously so many other crops that maybe aren't even on the radar of big player. Like, where are we today with saving and diversity of seeds?
I'd say like
Did I just freeze? Hold on. All right. There's Jeff.
Yeah, you didn't freeze, but I think.
Okay. I was like,
Nope.
maybe I'm the frozen one.
Nope.
Okay. Or he's just trying to fuck with me. He's actually,
right?
he's totally there. He's just super still. Yeah, it'd be cool. Oh wait, now we totally lost him. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have two Rottens, one Jeff and one Peter. Yeah, he's thinking. Yeah, that was the next show has to be lighter and fluffier.
Yeah.
We
100%.
need this one was a heavy
Yeah. Was not expecting today's show to go that way, but I never do when it does. So
sorry for cutting out.
that's okay.
That's all right.
Yeah.
What I don't yeah, I'm trying to remember what specifically you were talking about. I
You
hope you
were
remember.
asking state of global cannabis.
Oh yeah. Current well, not just cannabis, like seeds of all different types of
Oh, of
plants.
everything.
Like
Oh, everything's
yeah.
fine.
No.
No, like, no, not good. Bad. And I mean, better than it could be because people do shit. Like, that's the only thing that stops the Monsantos of
Yeah.
the world from consolidating all. And obviously, it's Bayer now, but whatever. But like, the willingness of people to dedicate themselves to a task, regardless of whether or not it's like futile or going to be something that actually does matter and does have some lasting impact, is important. And
Yeah.
that's the only reason why a lot of the plant genetic diversity that exists in the world today exists in the world today. It's people dedicating themselves to not the most economically productive, like maximizing mode of interacting with plants, but instead caring about a plant for whatever reason they care about the plant. It has some historical importance to them and their people. It has some importance within a weird, small, subculture that has dedicated itself to the preservation of a plant, which is by and large where most of the activity and most of the cool shit is going on in the world. And where, like, you look at plants, and it's like normal ass plants, like horticultural plants, like it's normal ass people who just dedicate themselves to shit and do the work that makes it so that information and there's like collectors who have huge collections of bugs that have the like largest collection of a particular species of bugs.
A moth or a beetle
like,
or
they're
a
just like private people who collect these bugs in their backyard, sort of thing. And that type of behavior, that type of doing something and dedicating yourself to something to preserve it is important. And that's what I think that, like, to the extent that plant genetic resources are in a good place, it's because people do that. And otherwise, it's in a relatively bad state.
Yep. Agreed. I agree. Yeah, there's a lot of concern for the state of our planet and environment, but I don't see a whole lot of people like really stoked on preserving just for the sake of preserving.
I think it's become more of a thing. The interest
in the cannabis space, yes, but
has just like exploded in the last 20 years. Like 20, 30 years ago, the only way to get landrace genetics was to go to the place because
I go to that.
weren't coming in and we weren't getting, genetics from all over the world from places of origin, so to speak. And so unless you were getting that stuff in the 70s, the 80s, and maybe a little bit into the 90s, that wasn't really our source by and large, except for like Mexican. At least from my perspective and like what I experienced. And there was much more by the 90s. Domestic production is what like I grew up on. And so I think now, because people have gone out, because people are intentional about it, there's been a massive effort towards collecting and preserving genetics. And there's been, 2 decades of people arguing about this shit on the forums and like, what's the appropriate population size to maintain an ex situ land race and shit like that. And like, those discussions have been good and generative, and I think that it's helped to build a culture in the cannabis community that has focused a lot more on preserving and maintaining heirloom or heirloom air quotes and landrace genetics. And like when I went to I did a course at UC Davis on breeding with genomics, and all of the like traditional plant breeders who were the professors, some of whom had worked for Monsanto and other companies, who were like giving all the lectures and presentations. Whenever we talked to them, their immediate discussion always focused on genetic modification and operating in a world of scarcity where they don't have genetic diversity. And they've essentially exhausted the genetic diversity within their crop species. And there's very, very limited new diversity that they can exploit for new creations and new things to produce. And so that's why they're so focused on GMOs. And they do have endemic, or, you know, like they get pests that just wipe them out. And so whenever we talk to them, they would always want to start the discussion there. And then we'd have to backtrack and be like, wait, there's all this genetic diversity that still exists in cannabis that we don't have to immediately jump to splicing in some other species genes to get a particular trait. We can find pest resistance within a population. The normal condition of a population is to have pest resistance genes. And the fact that there's so much feral cannabis all over the world means that those genes are in those populations and can be found and exploited. And when we had this conversation, they're like, oh yeah, cannabis is in a way different place as a crop species than the shit that we're working with. The shit we're working with is much more like the discussion that we had yesterday about like moving from the wolf to the chihuahua. Like they're at the chihuahua and they're having a hard time because they don't have wolves to go back to, and they're not able to get that diversity back into their shit because the original shit is extinct or unavailable. In some instances, there are other crops that that's not true. Like lettuces, they'll fucking splice, or they'll like back cross that to like weedy shit that's like, you know,
Right.
wild ancestral plants, and they can get some of that genetic diversity from those.
Yeah, the
Right.
Cavendish banana is wild. Like just how the whole banana industry is stuck in like it's like you can't backtrack and change course.
Yeah.
And aren't oranges going through
That
stuff
was,
like this too?
yes, that was the example that they used in like one of the guys in his presentation. I think it was the dude that was doing a presentation on breeding for pest resistance. But he was like, yeah, look, orange juice is going to disappear if we don't figure this shit out.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's such a bottlenecking of the types of oranges they use all around. Like in California, like the main orange producing regions.
It's that, and it's that there's no genetic resistance that they can find in any of that, from what I understand. Like the way he framed it, and granted this was fucking 7 years ago, the way it was framed was that there's just no genetic resistance to this pest, and because susceptibility is there's no way of breeding our way out of it. There's only like cultural and, you know, like spraying shit and like killing it, because it's, somebody said it, the citrus fucking yeah, well, the greening thing, but yeah, that's
Yeah, I remember black pine disease back in like the 80s in the East Coast. That like the
Yeah.
black pine was it was like a Dr. Seuss character looking funky pine tree, and just you'd see kind of down the line, like in a forest, one picking it up from like one that way, and just like all kind of starting to die.
That's crazy.
But
All right, fellas, I'm gonna get out of here. You can keep chopping it up.
Word.
Well,
Take care.
let's call it a day for there. I gotta now go back to the lumber yard again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so next week, and then I think they're gonna do a land race show, I think Monday night.
Okay.
But I will talk to you guys next week.
Cool.
Sounds
Right on.
good.
Take
My
care.
Oh, and
brother,
Yeah.
I know you did. Sorry, yesterday was the show that I love the impromptu organization of yesterday's show.
Yeah. No, that was good.
What are you doing right now? Let's go live.
Let's do this. Yeah. No, it worked. It fit into like same shit as everybody else: school, soccer, etc.
Kids,
Like
kids life.
yeah.
All right. Have a good one.
Cool. Right on. Take care, guys, and thank you, everyone.
See you, Travis.